Welcome to Monday on the AM show. And let me start off by apologizing for the late start. We faced a technical glitch this morning, a situation beyond our control. And, well, we've done everything possible to come your way. And we're starting a tad late, but we know that you will pardon us. On that note, welcome aboard the AM show with Benjamin and Bernice. And coming up this morning, we'll be serving you the news shortly. Right after that, the news review will be joined by our guest, Kojo Poku. He'll be joining us. But then we get into the big stories. One major big story that we're going to be looking at today. It has to do with former President John Dramani Mahama, who has once again been elected to lead the NDC into the 2024 election. Now, certified results by the EC show Mr. Mahama polled 297,603 votes, representing 98.9% of the total valid votes cast at the end of the NDC primaries on Saturday. His closest contender, the former Kumasi mayor, Kojo Bonsu, polled 3,181 votes, representing 1.1%. Now, this is the fourth time John Dramani Mahama will be leading the NDC into an election. We've got this on our table as we analyze the surprises as well, 16 of them. Now, among the incumbents who lost was the Member of Parliament for Sagnarigo, ABA Fusaini. Also, South Tong MP Wisdom Kobena Woyome lost to Maxwell Kwame Lukuto. Edward Bauer, MP for Bongo, lost his bid to represent the party in the 2024 elections, as well as Dr. Alex Adumakumenta, MP for Setre Afran Plains, who lost to a newcomer, Hajia Nasira Afra. We'll bring you the rest of the details on the show as we walk you through who lost, who won, who is new, and what it is shaping up to be heading into election 2024. We'll bring you the scoop on that. Today being a Monday as well, we'll bring you Drive Safe, helping all of us to drive safe and stay alive on our roads. That's what the show looks like today. Just stay with us. Once more, our sincere, heartfelt apologies for the late start to the show. On that note, let's settle for the news up next. Now, in our first story, newly elected flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, is rallying the rank and file of his party to set their focus on helping the NDC lead the country out of the current abyss it finds itself in. The former president garnered an impressive 297,603 votes, accounting for a staggering 98.9% of the valid votes cast at the just-ended primaries. His closest competitor, Kojo Bonsu, secured 3,181 votes out of the total 300,784 valid votes. Now, he is calling for unity as he gives the nod to lead the party for the 2024 elections.
Primaries of the NDC was officially declared. I'm humbled by the overwhelming vote of confidence reposed in me by the party. I want to thank God for bringing the NDC this victory. Traversing the country for all these days, weeks and months without any fatalities can only be by God's special favor. My profound gratitude goes to the delegates of our party for their warm welcome, active engagement, and participation during my tour. In your usual astute manner, you turned up in your numbers across the country to vote in our party's presidential and parliamentary primaries. I also want to thank Dr. Kwabena Dopo and Mr. Kojo Bonsu for their contest. My appreciation also goes to Mr. Enes Kobia, who pulled out to support me in this contest. Their taking part in this primary has cemented our party's enviable record as the most democratic political tradition in our dear country, Ghana. Let us disagree to agree, but let us keep our collective sights firmly on the supreme objective of the NDC, leading Ghana out of the current abyss in which we find our country. I also ask for cooperation amongst all our elected parliamentary candidates and their respective aspirants and supporters in all the constituencies across the country. Our party is the winner because there are no individual winners and losers in this intra-party contest. I want to thank my campaign and operational team for keeping their focus and delivering a clean campaign. I want to thank our donors and financiers for your support, and to thank the media for propagating our message, and all our religious and traditional leaders who prayed on our behalf for the peace and success we have achieved today. On Monday, at the University of Development Studies in Tamale, I will join a teeming number of the rank and file of the NDC and Ghanaians in general to deliver my formal acceptance speech. I'll see you in Tamale, and may God bless us all, and thank you for your kind attention.
Well, let's stay with the NDC. Competitive and chaotic. Words that best describe the NDC primaries at Ningo Prampra, where Sam George beat Michael Kwete Tete. Joseph Akakpo was there and reports.
Resounding victory. Sure. That's it. There's nothing more to add. It's going to be a resounding victory. It's like I've said earlier on. It's a battle between light and darkness, and I've never seen anywhere where darkness has prevailed over light.
How many football clubs have you seen that when they have a match and you ask them, they tell you, yes, I'm going to lose? He's going to lose it.
The Ningo Pram race was always going to be competitive. First, because the constituency has always been won by the NDC. This means the winner of the internal contest was almost certainly parliament bound. The previous contest in 2019 between Sam George and Michael Kwete Tete was settled by 7 votes. The two were confident of victory.
The margin between the NDC and the NPP in Ningo Pram was a mere 3,000. Just 3,000. Okay, that's how close it was. In 2015, when I became parliamentary candidate, 1 year of working, we moved it to 10,000 in 1 year in 2016. And in 2020, we moved it to 30,000. So when you take my report card as a member of parliament, every 4 years, from 3,000 to 30,000, it goes without saying that the people can only reward you with their votes if you work for them. And
you know, this is politics, and it's just like a war. So when you are going for war, you employ all sorts of strategies. So it is part of my strategy to do a few things in the house before coming on the ground. And that was it.
I mean, the last time the difference in the votes was just 7 votes. Does that give you confidence that this time around you'll be able to emerge victorious?
Yeah, exactly so. You know, as you are saying, this is not the first time I'm contesting. And last time I contested, the difference was 7 in favor of Honorable Sam George. Now, don't also forget that there were 27 others who participated and voted in the presidential primaries, but they were prevented from voting in the parliamentary, and all those 27 were my supporters, which means that if they were to be allowed to vote, I would have won by 20 votes.
Voting commenced around 8 a.m. MP Sam George had alleged a sponsored plot was set to be implemented to scuttle the polls.
Because the other side, we had the intelligence, the police as well, and don't forget, the police also gathers intelligence. We had intelligence we shared with the police, and the police corroborated our intelligence that they had brought in a few miscreants. They know they are losing the elections, and so they wanted to mar the elections. And so we requested for a beef up of police from both region and national. We asked our divisional command to also beef up their numbers. And so they are my guests. We are happy they are here. They are law enforcement officers. If you come here as a delegate and you cast your vote through the process, the police is smiling. They're not touching anybody.
Well, voting came to a standstill at least twice. The first was when the police had to arrest 2 delegates who were almost at each other's throats. The second interference lasted more than 45 minutes. Some 16 delegates were prevented from voting. They, however, insisted they had secured a court order allowing them to participate in the exercise.
We want all of us, and then they send it to court. We send our chairman send the case to court. So as we said, the court grant order for us that we should come and go. They give us order and everything. Now we are in here to vote, and they say no, we cannot vote. We went to court. We have been to court, and the court have given clearance to come and vote. What is that?
I mean, so you hear it is the issue about the order that came in from the court, and we are told that the court had issued an order that some delegates should be allowed to vote, and they've come in here with that court order and their names are not in the list, and so that is what is happening here. You can see Michael Kwete Tete here. He is trying to intervene and heading towards the booth. Sam George is also here as well. A couple of the booths are virtually almost falling down, and so Mr. George is here. Mr. Kwete Tete is also here. You can see him here engaging the officials here and insisting that something must be done and these individuals must be allowed to vote. And so he is intervening here. You can see him engaging. He has that court order with him, the order that came from the court.
The AC officials for many minutes made frantic calls to the party's headquarters in search of answers. They were eventually asked not to allow the 16 delegates to vote. Then came the long wait for results.
I can only make you one promise, the delegates and people of Ningo Pram Pram. Sam George will work even harder in the next parliament. Our next target is to achieve 100,000 votes for the NDC and John Dramani Mahama in the 2024 elections, and make sure that President Mahama is sworn in at the Black Star Square on the 7th of January 2025. Yes. That is the next focus of the constituency, myself and the executives. But I just want to say a big thank you to my delegates. Those of you who interviewed me in the morning, I said to you, they say fear delegates, but I trust my delegates. That's right. And they have not let me down. And I will continue to work for them. We look neither east or west, we look forward. We're focused on the job. My team and I will deliver 100,000 votes. Anybody who wants to join us is welcome.
Sam George wins Ningo Pram Pram.
We'll stay with the NDC as incumbent Member of Parliament for the West Central constituency, Dr. Rashid Hassan Pelpuo, has conceded the 2024 general election is not going to be child's play and therefore called for the support of all vanquished parliamentary aspirants in the party to rally behind him for victory. He noted that although he was declared the victor in the primary, it was the NDC that was the ultimate winner. Dr. Pelpuo polled 637 out of the 1,807 votes to beat former Chief Executive Officer of the Food and Drugs Authority, Alhaj Hudu Mokhtari. Lawyer Wahid Wampori Idrisu and lawyer Abubakar Mutiu Rahman. JoyNews Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam now reports from Wa.
Retrofitted every 4 years, we will win the West Central parliamentary primaries, though always struggles before he wins the general elections. Dr. Rashid Hassan Pelpuo, for a safe time, had his name on the ballot paper.
That 19 years is a starting point for many people, and for myself, it is the ultimate. I mean, I've gotten to the climax of what I want to do to my people or for my people. I've gotten to the climax, and I know I will yield better fruits than ever before.
A total of 1,807 delegates decided the fate of the 4 aspirants and the close uniform and plainclothes police protection. Among the males of delegates at the World Technical Institute Auditorium are stalwarts and senior members of the party at the national level, including national chairman of the Council of Elders and former defense minister in the Rawlings administration, Alhaji Idrisu Mahama. All 4 aspirants, with the exception of lawyer Wahidu Bompori Idrisu, who was not yet ready to speak to us, were satisfied with the voting process and predicted victory for themselves.
I've been through a lot of elections, and you can sense victory when it's coming. I can feel it. I feel the excitement in the room. I see people looking at me and beaming with smiles, which means they are ready to give the mandate to us.
Well, I think the process is smooth, and I am confident that at the end of the day, I will be proclaimed the victor.
After 8 hours of voting with few disagreements, the ballots were sorted out and results declared for the presidential and parliamentary primaries by the one municipal electoral officer of the Electoral Commission, Ben Anagulu.
Candidate John Dramani Mahama polled 1,712 votes. Candidate Kojo Bonsu polled 49 votes. Kobna Dufo, 0. The first candidate is candidate Hudu Buktari. He polled 708 votes, representing 39.6 votes percent. Candidate number 2, candidate Abdul Rashid H. Pelku, polled 871 votes, representing 48.7%. Candidate number 3, candidate Wahib Bampore Idrisu, polled 104 votes, representing 5.8%. Candidate number 4, Abubakar Mutio Rahman, polled 91 votes, representing 5.1%.
Dr. Rashid Pelpu was magnanimous in victory.
It is victory not just for me, but to all of us. It is victory for NDC. We are now having the flag in front of me, with all of them working with me. I believe very strongly that 2024 is not going to be a child's play. We will work together to win it as well. The candidates who contested me, I want to extend my gracious admiration for them.
From the politics, let's head to Makola now, where a shop owner is counting his losses as being over 24,000 pieces of frontal human hair and hair products that have been destroyed in a fire that gutted the shop at Makola in Accra. The incident occurred Saturday night. Managers of the shop, who are devastated, say they are waiting for an official report from the Ghana National Fire Service to ascertain the actual cause of the fire. My colleague Carlos Kaloni has the rest of the story.
As you can see in your shots there, we are currently at Avia Hair Collection here at Makola near Rawlings Park, where fire actually raised down this particular shop. Now, this shop deals in hair and body creams and all that, and we're told that 8:30 p.m. Yesterday, the place was gutted by fire, and as you can see from the ceiling, the fire actually caused a lot of havoc, and you can see the air conditioners and the wires hanging up there. And so this fire actually spread to other parts of the shop, and the ceilings have been badly damaged. We will be engaging with the manager of this facility to understand what might have caused this fire and what their next line of action is going to be.
It's very unfortunate that it happened yesterday evening around between 8:30 to 9. I was called on my way home by my boss, so I have to return back So when I got here, there was already fire service people were fighting, doing their best to bring the fire down. After they finished fighting the fire, I questioned them, but according to them, they have to do their report. So they promised that by close of tomorrow, they will give us the report as to what causes the fire outbreak. But for now, we've not heard anything from them, so we don't know what causes the fire. We received a product from, I think, Dubai, yeah, and that was Thursday and Friday. So even on Saturday, yesterday, we left there very late, tried to sort the product out because I have a delivery on Monday, which is going to Nigeria and other parts of our customers. The product at the store is huge. Because I did a report, I raised the invoice yesterday, and I saw what, I was going to Nigeria and Taiwan alone. Yeah.
So that is the harrowing narration from Kobla, the manager of this facility, from Avia Hair Collection here. My name is Carlos Caloni for JoyNews.
A bit of a sad note on which to cap off the news, but that's how we end. Up next, the news review. Do stay. Here we are, news review time, and we're joined by Kojo Poku, an energy analyst. We'll be interacting with him shortly, but right before that, let me let you know, of course, this segment brought to you kind courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Where can you find them? Well, they're all over the country, but here's what they're offering you gratis for free. Prostate screening. If you're a man, just head to them and they'll do it for you for free. Of course, everything else that follows, you would have to cater for. But then if you're a woman, fertility screening as well. You don't even know your status when it comes to fertility. And that's why you should make tracks to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Where can they be found? Here in Accra, at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Then there's Kumasi Chronomabwehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Tema Community 22, Takrade Anaji Estate, Techiman Hansua, and Esiama and Enzima. If you'd like to reach out to them, which I proffer you do, the numbers to call 0244-867-068 or 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But let's start now with the news review on the AM show. Kojo Poku joins the conversation. Mr. Poku, a very good morning to you, sir.
Very good morning to you, my brother. It's unfortunate that I can't see your happy mother's face. I can't see your happy mother's face. I'm sure you had a good time yesterday with the family.
I did. The rest of the day turned out to be a bit tricky, but yes, we did. We did have a good day, and we bless the Lord for that. And I celebrate all, since we didn't have the opportunity of doing that yesterday, I didn't. I celebrate all my mothers. I have a number of them, actually. My own mom, Susie Akakpo. And interestingly, I have another mom, Susan Na Amanua Ankra, Rita Kwashi, Madam Kudao, Madam Blebo, Sister Mary. I mean, if I start, I will never end. So to all of them... I
was about to say that if we both start mentioning the mothers we have to wish happy Mother's Day, this show will be 1 hour long just by mentioning names. So we'll just take a opportunity and wish all mothers a happy belated Mother's Day.
Yeah, and there's one, though, I have to mention. Fran Craig, all the way in Tennessee in the U.S., my godmother, or foster mother, if you like. Interesting. Anyway, so how did you celebrate your mom?
Well, the family wanted to go out for lunch, so we had to try and get reservation. It was difficult getting any, so
places were fully booked.
We went to Golden Tulip and Gate Crash, but we were able to get a very good seat and had a good lunch at Golden Tulip.
Wait, were you in Kumasi or Accra? Because if you're in Accra, then I suspect you meant...
Lancaster. I keep calling that place Golden
Got you
Tulip.
there.
Lancaster in Lancaster, yes.
Okay.
Lancaster in Accra. But even the Kumasi one is Lancaster as well, so both hotels are now Lancaster.
What I didn't know was whether that branch had also been subsumed. So, but at least I know for Accra. That's why I was trying to play safe.
Yes, no, both of them are Lancaster. Just I'm old school. It takes time for me to adjust.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to make tracks, but right before we get into the papers, on the back of the NDC's parliamentary and presidential primaries, you come from the other side. But based on what you saw on that day, the good, the bad, and the ugly, how would you assess briefly, what happened on Saturday?
Well, it's a good thing that they've gone through it. I mean, there was a fear that it might not happen. So at least all the technical, legal wrangling went on, and I think the elders of the party were able to put a handle on it and basically make sure that it happened. Now, on the day, we saw videos of people saying that they won't vote because they were promised transportation, and the transportation is not coming and all that. Look, we're beginning to make this process a very expensive process because if a delegate goes to a polling station, you join a charity organization, you join a non-governmental organization. It's an association that you have joined. But then to go and exercise your right to elect a leader of that society, you want to be given TNT, and if you are not given that TNT, you will not vote. Then why are you part of that society?
Yeah.
You know, I think we should start educating Ghanaians.
And I know the specific instance you're referring to.
Yes, I mean, we should let Ghanaians understand what they've gotten themselves into. Political parties are societies. It's like Mary Mother. It's like all the other church societies everybody joins. And we are happy to contribute to go on trips with these organizations and these societies. But when it comes to political parties, you want the political party to pay you to do the duty you have ascribed. You got up and joined. But I don't blame them. I blame the people at the top who have made this thing seem like a cash cow, because the guy at the bottom, the grassroots, feels that if that guy gets to the top, then he becomes friends and family, and he doesn't see anything out of the association that he or she joined. So, look, it's getting a bit ridiculous where people are blatantly demanding for certain things as if, you know, meanwhile, if you ask that person, have you paid your dues in the last year, they've not ever paid dues to the society.
So Kojo, that is one interesting angle you've brought up, but there's also the element of money in our politics. And while, by and large, that did not happen, in a drought, we saw something rather curious. In another place, it was someone sharing rice. So, in other words, go and cast your vote. And I don't know how he was able to prove that, Asemesi, this or that person had voted for him, but then he would give you a bag of rice in the full glare of the public. Yes, then there was the one in Idra where she was openly, brazenly spreading money from the rooftop of her car. And it did not happen once, it happened twice. And she says, oh, she found money in her car and started sharing it. I don't know the logic of that. I don't know how logical that is, but people were calling for the special prosecutor to get onto that case. You remember the DCE who said that he had paid some people to vote for him, and so he wanted his money back if they hadn't voted for him. Well, the interesting scenario here is that, well, she is not a public officer. This wasn't a public election. It was a party election. So maybe the special prosecutor may not be able to go into it. But whichever way, this does not bode well for our politics, does it?
But Ben, the lady sharing money out of the car, did she win?
She didn't. Interestingly, all the people who shared anything, from the rice guy to the lady sharing money, they all lost.
Thank you. So it goes to tell people and give a certain message. And I can cite a few examples of some young people who felt that they've come into money, or the family has money and they can go into constituencies and win, and they thought that, look, it was about money. Look, this politics, I keep telling people that, yes, you see, we are making it about money, and the delegates are beginning to demand their pound of flesh when it comes to these things, and I'm complaining that, look, we should try and put a stop to it. But at the heart of it, in my 1 year of doing this thing, trying to lead the MPP, one of the things I have come across is that those that come at you for money at every corner are the ones who are not supporting you.
I see.
And that's what I have concluded. Those that come at you for money at every corner, every minute, every turn, they are trying to now squeeze some money out of you. They are the ones who are not supporting you. Because those that are supporting you, I have some wonderful guys in the northern region. I have this wonderful guy in the northeast, Mark, who is doing a brilliant job. The guy in central region doing a brilliant job. All KMP reps around the country. Look, those serious ones, they don't come at you for anything. Sometimes you feel bad for them, okay, because you see that these guys are doing more than they are going above for you,
right,
and you feel like, look, guys, let me just chip in. And they'll be like, no. There's a lady who comes to me every day and do rounds. If I try to give her money for her fuel, she gets upset. These are the people that understand what it takes to be part of something genuine. So, look, it's up to us, the politicians, to basically try and avert these things. You need the money for the logistics. Look, people are complaining, like our big uncle, Mr. Dufour. He's complaining about there's no album. He's complaining that the process is not fair. Did he put resources towards there being an album? Did he put resources towards meaning that the election is held well? You see, we spend money in the wrong areas. Then come and complain that the party doesn't have the resources. So if the NDC didn't have a credible album, maybe they didn't have the resources to put together a credible album. Meanwhile, people have money to give 40 cities per person for transportation. People have money to go around and spread the money. We all heard about the money that allegedly was being spent by the camp. Did they give that money to the party to organize a credible election? No, you did not. You went and spent that money in the campaign trail. Then you want the party to be able to organize a credible election. How? So for me, candidates, and this goes to both sides, to our side as well, which is we have an upcoming campaign. People going around spending money, make sure that the party is resourced. If you don't resource the party to organize a credible election, then you don't get a credible election. It's as simple as that, because the party is a non-profit making organization. Unless you donate to it, they don't make money anyhow.
So that's interesting. Just because you brought in Dr. Kwabena Dufour, quick one. So you feel, on the back of what he raised, the questions he raised, well, how much did he contribute to the success of the elections? That comes into question. You've already questioned that. But do you feel this should have a ripple effect on those close to him? Because those in the NDC have said he unnecessarily entangled the NDC in everything that happened. So guess what? In Setra Plains, his son, Dr. Kwabena Dufour Jr., who was expected to win, didn't. He actually placed second. Then his son's uncle, Dr. Dufour Sr.'s own relation, also there, Dr. Mensah also lost. Dr. Alex Mensah also lost. He was actually the incumbent. And guess what? Hajia Nasira took the slot and won. Do you think there are going to be consequences? As you say, you didn't contribute much towards the success of the elections, yet you badmouthed it and everything. Do you think generally there are consequences for saying in politics?
No, there isn't. If you conduct an election, look, elections should be about ideas. It should be a contest of ideas, not a contest of personalities. Okay, and that's the problem we have in Ghana. All our contest is beginning to be a personality contest. It shouldn't be. If you went out there and the contest was about ideas, then you will not fall foul of insulting or insinuating or putting people in bad light. Then after the election, the other side will reach out to you and say, oh, sir, you have some brilliant ideas in your campaign. Please come and join me and let's all build a better party or a better country. But if you go around and insinuate and cast people in bad light, then obviously they are going to have issues. You see, I always keep saying that politicians forget, but they don't forgive. Sorry, they forgive, but they don't forget. Okay? They will forgive you, shake hands, but there's no way if you call people names, even if they forget, the people behind them don't forget. So I think that the contest, which theirs is done, and my advice goes to the candidates in the MPP side, let's have a contest of ideas. You know what I mean? We've seen videos of some candidates going around basically calling names and being disrespectful to other candidates, which is not helpful. So if it's a contest of ideas, then that way you don't call out anybody's name. I, Kujun Sapapoko, have been going out to most regions and having my meetings. And anybody who cares to call any of the regions I have been, they will tell you how wonderful my presentation is. I do less than an hour presentation. I don't mention anybody's name. I just basically do a presentation of what I, Kojopoku, would do to change the party and country without mentioning anybody's name. That is what election is about. It's about ideas. And that is why I'm gaining the traction I'm gaining. Okay? So, look, I think that people, you should bear the consequences of your action. If his family or people related to him or close to him or people who work with him suffer in the party as a result of his utterances, that's unfortunate, but those are consequences of things you do.
Let's get into the papers very quickly. Daily Graphic this morning saying, attitudinal change key to natural resource management. That's according to Kojo Nkrumah. First tranche IMF cash coming. That story as well on page 13. Then Mahama leads NDC again. Charges party to focus on winning 2024 elections. Samira Baumia, Tego sisters are the Mirror, that is the Mirror newspaper, Model Mothers 2023, and drowned school children buried. I'm going to do a quick one on all of these major stories. So we've already spoken about the Mahama one, winning by 98.9%, Kojo Bonso with 1.1%. We all know of that. Dr. Dufour, interestingly, some people still voted for him. 3 here, 10 here, 20 there, but it didn't add up to anything in the final analysis, though he had withdrawn from the race. So, but some people still gave him some trickle of votes. But let's look at this one. Mahama leaves the NDC again. On that, I will ask you, on the back of this resounding, overwhelming victory, 98.9%, almost 300,000 of the votes cast. You want to lead the MPP. Can you, from what you've seen, beat John Dramani Mahama? And even if not you, hold on, even if not you, if some other candidate wins, on the back of everything we're facing, can the MPP break that 8, defeat John Dramani Mahama? What do you think?
Well, Ben, I can beat John Dramani Mahama with one hand tied behind my back.
Hold it. You are saying you,
we've had this conversation before, Ben.
You can beat John Dramani Mahama with one hand tied behind your back.
It's very simple. It's very easy and very simple.
I see.
He's not a candidate. If you've gone to a contest and you've done, no president in Ghana has only done 1 term. There's a reason for that. He's the only one that has done 1 term. Because he performed so badly that Ghanaians couldn't wait for another 4 years to get rid of him. So they got rid of him from the first term.
If you look at it technically, he really didn't have 1 term, did he?
Well, he did have a 1 term. Why did he have 1 term?
He enjoyed the latter term of former president.
He had the latter term of president.
And he had been vice president
and then went to election in 2012 and won and lost in 2016. So he had 1 term, 1 full term. I don't see where you are getting this from. He came in when His Excellency died, and then did that rest of that term.
You say you don't see where I'm coming from. Let me explain to you where I'm coming from. It's simple. It's like the current vice president maybe trying to detach himself and say, oh, I have been vice president. I'm now coming into it for a full term. Have you heard the rhetoric? People are tying him to what this administration has done. That is the angle I'm coming from. I'm not disputing that he actually did. No, hold on. I'm not disputing that he actually spent 1 term of 4 years as president. But I'm merely saying, in the political analysis, people tie you to the previous term. So if you want to justify it, you would say that people became tired of him because he had been there with the previous administration. He had had his own term, and the fatigue was there. 8 years is 8 years.
It's not true. It's never true. Look, an individual, you see, Ben, when you make that analysis, we make it look like leadership doesn't mean anything. Really and truly, look, I honestly believe that if you look at the numbers that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama got in 2012, the young people of this country, especially in Greater Accra, overwhelmingly voted for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. He really got the young people's vote. But you see, once that much is given, much is expected. So if the young people give you that much vote because they think that, oh, you are the one that you are hip and your slogan is "It's the big and that sort of things, right? People can relate and say, okay, he's a young guy, let's give him a chance. Then they give you that chance and you come in and disappoint them. They don't have the patience for you. So let's not make it look like people judge the party. No, people judge the president, the leader. I honestly don't subscribe to the fact that people think that, oh, the performance of a leader now goes to diminish the chances of the whole entire party. No, it's not true.
Right.
So I don't subscribe to that. But look, going to your point of can I beat His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, 100%. I can. Look, because look, all the things that I keep saying is that election 2024 is not about NDC members or MPP members. It's about the 4 million votes that don't take part in this political process. In the last election, we did registration in November or October, thereabouts, right? And then voted in December. We had about 17 million people registered voters. Only 13 million showed up at the polls to vote. It tells you that 4 million people in the midst of COVID, right, will queue and collect the voter ID just as an ID card.
Right.
Okay? But they are not interested in the political process because they don't think it addresses their problems. Kujupuku are the one who is revitalizing that 4 million base. The young guy who is on IG, on Snap, interacting with these young ones to see that, look, there's a better future for them. So, look, it is not about would an NDC person vote for an MPP candidate, or it's not about will an MPP person or party member vote for an NDC. Everybody will vote for their own person. Every person who is NDC will vote NDC. Everybody who is MPP will vote MPP. Who makes the difference? The middle guy. Okay, the average Joe who goes to work every morning and cries for the little in his pocket and he can't make enough ends meet to pay the family bills. Is Kujopoku putting solutions for these people? Yes. And for me, that's why I said I'll beat him with one hand tied behind my back, because he does not appeal to the middle voter.
All right. Now let's get into other stories. I find it interesting, though, as you say, he is not a candidate that he had disappointed, the youth especially. I go around the country as well, and I've listened to quite a number of people about, especially young people, in terms of how disappointed they are with this administration. I don't know how you think that will impact the fortunes of your party. But let's get into page 13. Attitudinal change key to natural resource management, Kojo Ponkroma says so. He stressed that at the National Dialogue on Natural Resource Management, which ended in Accra last Friday, organized, of course, by the Daily Graphic. Interestingly, a number of bigwigs in the MPP have been cited for destroying our natural resources with illegal small-scale mining, aka Galamsey. Now, the first tranche IMF cash coming, and the first tranche of $600 million is expected. It will be used for budgetary support and also serve as balance of payment support for the country. Of course, it'll go directly to the central bank and help show up our economy. What is your reaction to these two stories?
Well, quickly, look, the youth around the country are disappointed with the current leadership. Yes, we all share. But he's no longer on the ballot. He's no longer running again. So this administration is not coming back. There's a new administration that's going to come back. So that one, I don't see how a new person will come in and tell the youth about their new ideas, and then the youth will make a choice. About the IMF money coming in, look, I have said that the IMF is only an Imodium. It stops the diarrhea. It doesn't stop or cure the infection. We have not still seen from the government the policy that will basically cure the infection. Slow rate of growth in the economy, private sector not having liquidity, banks losing money because of all the results of the debt exchange, and a booming economy. We don't have that. What are the things that are to be put in place to make sure that we actually come out of the bottom of the U? Okay, because we are bottom. When you're doing a U-curve, you need to now start climbing. I Kujupuku, have not seen those policies that will now start giving us growth. You need growth for industry to start hiring, for people to have disposable income. You need to basically create the enabling environment for that to happen. I am not seeing that. The 600 million coming in, if we start paying our indebtedness after we've restructured all these debts, if we start paying our indebtedness, that resources, yes, will help give us dollar liquidity to pay our indebtedness. But for this economy to get back to where it was 7, 8, 10, 9, 12 years ago, we need to start what? Growing the economy. One of the things that nobody talks about anymore is the country rating. Okay? In the past, we made a lot of noise about the B rating the country had. We made a lot of noise about how the economy has been run so well because the international community now see it fit that we have a good rating. Let me quickly tell you how ratings...
Very quickly on that, so we get to the daily guide.
How rating affects you in your country. No business in your country can have a better rating than the country. So the country rating is the top ceiling. Except it's a multinational organization, then they can use the mother company, which sits in Europe, as for their rating. Because Ghana now has a very bad rating, businesses in Ghana or Ghanaian businesses are suffering getting credit. Okay, so that we need to change that narrative. We need to change the environment so businesses can grow. I don't see how the IMF and the 6 million coming in changes that. We need to see policy from government which addresses growth in the economy.
Let's get into the Daily Guide newspaper. There's Mahama leads NDC, 17 MPs fall. You're looking at Delasowa in Kpando, ABF Husseini in Sagnarigu, Samson Chirajia, and then Kwabena Donko Pru as well, in that Pru area. I don't know whether it's Pru East, I have to confirm. But all of these big wigs falling, losing their incumbency, so to speak. Immigration officer rescues corpse. Captain Koda chases Frimpong Boateng over Galamsey report. And complete Wager steel bridge now. That's according to residents. I'll take the two stories on page 6 very, very quickly. So let's get in there. So residents of Wager and its surrounding communities in the Greater Accra region have blamed the boat accident which claimed the lives of 9 school children on the delayed completion of a modular composite steel bridge sited close to the Wager Dam on River Densu at Aigbe Town. According to the residents, the uncompleted steel bridge is expected to serve as a vehicular and footbridge for residents of the community, including school children who currently use boats and canoes as a means of crossing from Wager to Aigbe Town and vice versa for school. Now, here's the point. These 9 school children who have drowned this time, I think 20 of them were affected, 9 drowned, and they have passed on. In fact, their burial was organized over the weekend. The Daily Graphic captures that. This is the second we've seen in a short space of time. January, we had 8 lives were lost in Wayokope, in the Center East area, on that stretch. Here we are again with this. I don't know how serious we are as a country when it comes to protecting the most vulnerable, in this instance, children. You don't provide them with schools, you don't provide them with bridges, you don't provide them with boats, you don't provide them with life jackets, and yet when they die, in fact, it took a long time, no proper response from authorities. That's the first one. And then, but for the bravery of an immigration officer with the Western North Regional Immigration Command, 2 police officers in uniform would have been beaten to death by an unknown young man at Seshi, Rioso. The unfortunate incident happened on Saturday, May 13, 2023, at about 9 a.m. at the Anglican Church Park in Seshi, Rioso in the Western North region. The attacker was said to have used a club and a pestle to hit the heads of the police officers, an inspector and a corporal who fell unconscious in the process. Now, this immigration officer quickly picked the AK-47 rifle belonging to one, according to a statement signed by the acting Western North Regional Commander of the Ghana Immigration Service, ACI Augustus Echampong. AICO2 Nuruddin Abdul Ganiu Takra, stationed at the Western North Immigration Regional Command, was the one who rescued the 2 police officers who were under attack. Quick reactions to these 2 stories.
Well, look, when it comes to the kid story, it's very unfortunate. It's happening when at any point in time somebody has to lose a loved one. But with this infrastructure in the municipalities and the communities not being taken good care of or repaired or maintained, whose fault is that? You mentioned authorities. Which authorities would you blame? Local government.
Well, let me clarify. Initially, when the one that happened in Wayokope did, we had the education minister, we had other ministers, I've forgotten exactly which one, whether it's transport or something, but we had one of them go there. Promises were made about a school building. The children there are now having to school in a church. They use a church building. The promises haven't been kept. In terms of life jackets, we were told something like that would happen. I don't know. I cannot say for certain what has happened on the back of that. But these promises were made by these ministers. So there's an area to point to, most definitely.
Ben, the point I was going to make was that the local government system has disappointed us. Okay, that's the point I'm making. It doesn't have to take a minister that sits in Accra to go into a locality when these incidents happen. Where is the MMDCE? Where is the district assembly person? Where is the municipality assembly person? Because these infrastructures, when they are not fit for purpose, who sees them? Is it the minister or the local or community? You see, the point I was driving at is that the authorities that we should blame, and we should do something about it, it's the local government. Because the local government is not fit for purpose. Okay, the DCE, the MMDCE are sitting there and not doing the work they're supposed to do. How is it that you can let these footbridges get to the situation and then put kids' life in danger? Now, there isn't proper school. Who is supposed to take care of these things? All these things boil down to the MMDCE. They are there for a reason. Everybody thinks that we appoint district executive or municipal executive just because we have to appoint them. No. We appoint them to change the lives of the people in that municipality. We appoint them to change the life of the people in that district. The fact that they are not doing it, is creating these problems. So for me, I have said that, look, Mr. President should wake up and basically dismiss all these MMDCs who are not performing. Because, look, there isn't money, but you can raise the money in some of these municipalities through your IGF. Okay?
Right.
But if you cannot do that, then you are sitting there and complaining about common fund. Common fund is not the only source of revenue for an assembly. So the point I'm saying is that it's unfortunate, and today, 8 parents don't have their kids. It's unfortunate. Now, if you go to the immigration officer who went in and rescued...
So very briefly on that, if you may, I want us to look at about 2 stories more before we end, on the back of time. Thank you, Kojo. Go ahead.
Right. So obviously, you're looking at the immigration officer who is able to go and rescue... was it a policeman?
Yes, 2 police officers.
Okay. Thank you. We've seen videos of similar instances where in the Galamsey areas, you have, what do you call it? You have Galamsey people dragging policemen on the street, okay? And it's unfortunate. And I blame the style of recruitment going on today in our security services, okay? The level of training and the overwhelming number of people that want to get into these. Before, if you see a policeman, you take 2 steps back. Today, you see some policemen and women, and you just look at them and laugh and walk away. Because, I mean, you're asking yourself, what criteria was he used to select this person as a police? You understand? And I'm not saying that nobody can be in the security forces. But if we are trying to recruit, we need to basically equip, train, give them some level of expertise to handle themselves. If somebody with an AK-47 can easily be manhandled by an individual, then what are we talking about? Okay, so I just think that we should look at the training and the recruitment process of the security service to improve so that they can help us better.
All right. Let's wrap with these 2 stories, Kojo. The Publisher, The Finder, The Economy Times reflecting a number of stories we've already done, but these are the ones that stand out for me. The Ghanaian Publisher says, government unveils 100 million Ghana cedis for women. I am very passionate about women's affairs, so I had to do the story. The government has launched a 100 million Ghana cedi grant funding initiative for training and capacity upgrading of high-growth micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises owned by women and young persons. The initiatives, which are being supported and funded by the World Bank and the government under the Economic Transformation Project, will allocate 40 million Ghana cedis as grants for women as MSMEs and 60 million to young persons between the ages of 18 and 35. Launching it, the Minister for Trade and Industry, Mr. Kobina Tahiri Hammond, said the programs aligned with government's goal of providing training, capacity upgrades, and more to help businesses. I am all for this, but I'm hoping, again, like we've seen with government initiatives, that it actually reaches the people who need it, who need the funding, because these are some of the ways we can shore up our economy. Women, we know how they tackle affairs when it comes to business, and let's depoliticize it. That is my only hope on that. Then I'll wrap with this story in Economy Times. Ghana's economy looks fragile, and Ghana's economy may be heading into recession if the government is unable to secure the $3 billion extended credit facility from the IMF. The government, of course, is hoping for that $3 billion deal, but in fact, in an interview with me, Dr. Saad Idrisu said something. It's captured here by the paper as well. In terms of that warning of a looming crisis in the banking sector, he has said that if by June, thereabouts, we don't get, for example, the $1.5 billion that we're seeking from partner agencies, the international community, in terms of shoring up our banking sector, you've heard of that fund that has been set up, our banks could start going under. Quick thoughts on these 2.
Well, we are back to pre-2017, where the banks were not in good shape. Even now, they've recapitalized. And when they recapitalize, because of the depreciation of the city and basically the debt exchange, they are making losses, which go directly to shareholders' funds. And unfortunately, we are where we are now, that we need to go and find another set of money to do another banking sector bailout. Unfortunate. Very, very, very unfortunate. All those things are monies that could have gone to what? To business, private business. Because if the private business does well, then the banks will do well, because then they have more liquidity to put in the banking sector. For me, I just think that we need to rethink all these banking bailouts. Banks, when they have money, who do they give it to? They give it to government. Lazy way of working. The banks don't give credit, and even if they are to give credit, they ask for your grandmother, his ancestors, and the arm of a chicken and the teeth of a tiger. Okay, things that you cannot fulfill. So the banks are not in the position to easily help these big businesses.
Right.
Like that ties into the first story you did, where it's now taking government and the World Bank to come and provide 40 million and 50 million to youth and the women sector. Why isn't the banks able to do these things? But I think if private sector does it, they can do it and monitor it better. Look, I have been going around the country and saying that we should give training, skill training and entrepreneurship. Now, this money is a good thing. But don't just give it to them by just saying that, oh, you're taking them on the 3-day workshop and blah, 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 and you give them the money. No. You should teach them a skill.
Okay.
And teach them how to do business and then give them the money. So if you just give somebody a money, the person can say, oh, I'm going to sell mobile phones. I'm going to open a shop to sell mobile phones and accessories. Then you give that person money. How many people are selling mobile phones and accessories?
Yeah.
And in 2 weeks, if that mobile phone business doesn't do well, the money is gone. So to empower the youth, especially the money for the youth, we should teach them a skill, teach them entrepreneurship, then give them that money. For the women, we should do cooperatives in the market areas. If we realize that they have a shop and they have a setup, then help them with a capital. But it should be in the cooperative. It should be more of a cooperative. 4 or 5 women will take money so that they are responsible for each other being able to pay it back. If people take loans like this, yes.
I get the point you're making. I think maybe some other time we'll get time to expatiate further on that specific point. I guess it's something you've been talking about going round, so it's something to look at. But we're grateful that you joined us this Monday morning.
Thank you very much. And I have to say that your brooch, if you can get me one of those brooch, I'll be very, very happy, because it looks like a very wonderful brooch.
Thank you, sir. Kodopoku, energy analyst, joining us this morning. Let me just send some shouts to Ethan and Hewlett. Young boys, so to speak, saw you in church yesterday. You always watch the AM show. Thank you for doing the watching. Right before we get into sports, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us to bring you this segment. Of course, they're offering free prostate screening, free fertility screening as well. Make roads to them. Just reach out to them in Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi Kronomabwe behind the Angel Educational Complex. Takrady Anaji State Tama Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Esiama Enzima. Their call lines 0244 867-068 or 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Also bringing us to the end of the news review. Up next, we serve you Sports Tuesday.
It's Monday morning, and this is how we welcome to AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. And we start with the MTN FA Cup. The grand semi-final of the competition took place over the weekend, and it is going to be an all-Premier League final after Dreams FC and King Faisal defeated their opponents, Sky FC and Nswatuma, respectively, to book a ticket to the grand finale of the competition. The first semi-final contest saw Dreams FC beat Sky FC 2-1, while King Faisal came from behind to win 3-2 against Nswatuma FC. We go for the highlights of these matches.
Dreams, which is their midfield. McCarthy sets Simba on the loose through the middle. Gail turns. Can he deliver a shot on target? Oh!
This time is a bit ferocious. Super build-up. Simba locates Gael Aholu and look at the pass. And it's Ali Hussain with that confidence. Turn onto his left foot. Goalkeeper off his line and he plants the ball on the turf to the back of the net. It's a super finish, sumptuous finish. And this is what Dreams FC needed. That cushion.
have their foot in every place on the field. They're making it difficult for Baba and Goal to go forward. Here comes Baba once again. His trickery gets him into the 18-yard box. Opportunity across the face of goal. Oh! They're back in the game. They are back in the game.
This is superb. And Baba in the center of everything. And here it's coming out with that lovely skill. Went past the defense and just look at the cutback. Yes, Musa trying to wiggle his magic through, but the moment it fell for Kobna, he's taking on Ibrahim, and Ibrahim can't get there with the ball across the face of goal. There was the connection.
King Faisal gets the job done. Not that kind of a flamboyant player. Kote asks for it and gets it once again. He drills in the cross. And the referee has pointed to the spot. Gideon Kofi was right close to the action.
Yeah, Jumo is not even complaining.
Yeah.
What a delivery, what a ball in there by Kote. And Jumo, he just can't sort his body out. I mean, he's facing the ball, but what a ball in there from Kote. And there, Satraman moves up from. They look dangerous.
So it's an opportunity for the team from Inswatre to shoot into the lead. There they have it.
Hot cake. And it's Satraman and just look at the confidence. Plants it very deep. Low down there. Jabbar can't pick that.
So the near side now, here's Kusi. Samuel Kusi gets across through the 18-yard box. There are no white shirts there to connect. Goalkeeper came out nicely. Save the day. But can they prevent this? No! King Faisal are back in the game.
This is that kind of quality you need in the final way. Dreamland. Lovely pass, lovely whip of a cross, and nobody there to defend that ball. Faridou capitalized on it, and Elia put it just in front of Babayaya. It's a glorious finish, that kind of finish. Contest from Eswache Mine.
Pushed on through the middle, quick turn. Yaya turns the player inside out. They're still going. Yaya manages to get in the cross. Oh, that's a sublime goal! That's a wonderful goal!
But it's the petite Babayaya with that lovely delivery, and on the volley he catches it so well for Boateng. Amazing skill to get it all around, and that delivery from Baba. He set it up for Boateng. What a finish. It's emphatic. It's classic.
Long ball in. Can Inswatreman take advantage? They try and go through the middle. Oh, they're back in the game. They are back in the game. That was an unfortunate slip.
You need quality, you need composure to finish off this particular move. It's lovely, it's clinical. What a way to cut open the defense of King Faisal. Lovely pass from Stephen Dio. And great composure. Plants it beyond the reach of that pressure we saw getting to the end of the first half.
Now here's Elia Jr. Sets up the pass. Lawekpo through the middle. Entry! Oh! Will you call that a lucky goal?
The organization was a bit poor. Bature is just trying to play it 1-2 with Elia Kofi Jr. But Jr. twisted and turning, will lay it on for Farida. Okay, Farida will whip it just across the face of goal, but you expect Eswache to deal with it here. There was no danger here until he took that ricochet.
This was how Chelsea also dropped points when they came up against Nottingham Forest. The good news for Chelsea fans is that they have been able to maintain their status as a Premier League team, because a couple of weeks ago they were just close to maybe losing a place of competing in the Premier League. But as it stands now, Chelsea will play in the Premier League next season. What is not going to happen, however, is that the club will not play European football. And this is going to be for the first time in about 19 years since Chelsea started participating in the UEFA Champions League. Reports are that Mauricio Pochettino is going to be the next manager of Chelsea, effective next season. And in fact, media reports suggest that He's taking over the job in June, which is just next month. This is how we wrap up AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullah. We appreciate your company. The show continues right after this.
Welcome back on the AM show. We get into our major big story for you this morning. And we all know it by now. Former President John Dramani Mahama has once again been elected to lead the party into the 2024 presidential election. Now, certified results by the Electoral Commission showed Mr. Mahama polled 297,603 votes, accounting for 98.9% of the total valid votes cast for the presidential primary on Saturday. His closest contender, former Mayor of Kumasi, Kojo Bonsu, polled 3,181 votes, representing 1.1%. Now, this would be the fourth time John Mahama will lead the NDC into an election. We've got this on our table as we analyze the surprises as well. 17 bigwigs, incumbent members of parliament, if you like, that lost their slots. We can talk about Sagnarigo's ABA Fusaini, South Tong's Wisdom, Kobena Woyome, among others. What exactly transpired? How did Edward Bauer, for example, lose in Bongo? How did Dr. Alex Adomako Mensah lose in Sachafran Plains? In fact, he lost. His nephew, Dr. Kwabena Dufour Jr., also lost there, losing to Hajia as well. Then there's Delasewa in Kpando. Now she had served 3 terms and she lost this time round in Kpando. Then we can't also forget about former Power Minister Dr. Kwabena Donko. He lost in Pru East. There's Bia West, where the incumbent MP Augustine Tewia also lost. We'll bring you the scoop on all of these, but we'll be hearing from some of the winners and losers as well on this show. Let's start off, though, by interacting with some political scientists, academics, people in the space who have thoughts to share on the process from Saturday. We have Dr. John Osai Kwapong. He is a CDD fellow. He joins the conversation. Dr. Kwapong, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Good morning to you as well. Thanks for having me.
And I'd just like to say a big thank you to you. Whenever we knock on your door, you open. So we're grateful that you've taken the time to join us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Also joining the conversation, Ibrahim Adams Mumuni. Now, he gave Kofi Adams a real run for his money in the Buem constituency. We have Ibrahim joining the conversation as well. Mr. Mumuni, a very good morning to you. All right, so as and when his Zoom connection is ready, we'll bring him back. But Dr. Osai Kwapong, looking at what happened on Saturday, the movers and shakers were there, and boy, was there a shake-up, because 17 of these incumbents lost their slots. But generally, what do you make of the process? And when I say generally, I want you to talk, for example, about the Edra constituency, where that lady was spraying cash like there was no tomorrow from the, opening in her vehicle. And she did it twice, claiming, she found money in her car and started distributing it. I can't get that logic for the life of me, but maybe you can explain. There was someone sharing rice. You go and vote, then you come for a bag of rice. I mean, so many things happened. There were very positive aspects, but of course, these were negative aspects that we spotted. In Ningo Pram Pram, we saw how feisty it got. At a point, the entire process came to a standstill because guess what? There were some 16 people who felt they had to vote. Eventually, the EC officers had to call the NDC's executive or the authorities to clarify. And they were told, no, these people are not supposed to vote. In fact, Fifi Fiavi Kwete, the party's general secretary, had spoken earlier to my colleague Samuel Kojo Brace, indicating that the only people who were going to be voting were the same people who had voted for the executives of the party in that Congress. What do you make of the entire process?
So I think overall, we must commend the party for having had an overall successful primary process. I think in the lead up to Saturday, we all were witnesses to the lawsuit or the potential lawsuit that could have, injuncted the process or derailed the process. So I think it came as a really big relief that the scheduled primaries were able to come on. The Electoral Commission was able to supervise as well. I think in these, what I call, intra-party democracy, competitions, you are bound to run into some of these administrative challenges, whose name is on the registrar, whose name is not on, who is going to vote, who is not going to vote, things like that. And like as you said, the General Secretary did clarify, that no, those were, those 16 individuals in that particular constituency, for example, were not people who were supposed to vote. I think it's always a lesson for the political parties in terms of how they continuously find ways to deal with some of these administrative issues and challenges that come up as they prepare for these internal party elections. On the issue of the spraying of cash or the distribution of other goodies, we always hear about these things, during all of these internal party elections. I don't know how, well, I have an idea of how you make it go away. I think that if, when we see these things and, we keep talking about, well, it's the cocoa season for delegates. And one of the things, though, that I think candidates need to keep in mind is that more and more delegates are showing them that they will do what they want to do at the end of the day, which is they will vote for whichever candidate they want to vote for. It does it. So some of these inducements, at the end of the day, I personally don't think for some candidates it has the kind of effect that they expect to have. But at the same time, I'm also sure that in the minds of the candidates, if these inducements are part of the process, they can't unilaterally disarm, meaning that if I know that my opponent is going to try and induce delegates, how wise would it be on my part to say that, well, I won't induce and come what may? I don't think that the candidates have gotten to the point where they want to make those choices or take those risks. I personally think that if the parties move to an open primary, it would curb a lot of these inducements. The argument I have regularly made is that, quote unquote, it is easier to buy delegates than it is to buy an entire constituency. So if in a constituency, let's say there are 100 delegates, but in that entire constituency, there are 20,000 voters, I think it will be very difficult for you to go door to door to try and induce all 20,000 voters in that constituency, which is why I would love to learn more, because I've been very curious why the NDC moved from open primaries for their parliamentary election to back to the delegate system. Because I particularly was very excited and very happy when they tried the open primary in their last, primaries in the lead up to the I think it was the 2016 election. And then they moved back and made changes in the lead up to 2020 by going back to the delegate system. I would love to find out from the party what they think worked or did not work with the open primary system that made them rethink that approach and move back to the delegate system. But these are some of my initial thoughts and impressions.
Now, interesting that you point out, those bits about the delegates and voting. But in some instances, we actually saw some of them making demands. In one constituency, we actually saw them claiming that they had been promised on behalf of the former president that they were going to get 40 cedis each, transport or whatever, and that without that, they wouldn't vote. So this is a two-way street. We blame the political actors when they engage in monetization, the monetization of our democratic process. But how about those who also demand it and say, without this, no payment of some sort, no vote? What do we do in that instance?
You're correct, but in this case, though, it was the former president who had initiated that to say, we are going to support all delegates with TNT, 40 Ghana cedis for your transportation, right? So I think for that, then there was nothing wrong with the delegates saying, hey, this 40 cedis that we are supposed to all get for transportation purposes, where is it? And, you want to make sure that some of these little promises, you're made, they do come true, you do honor them. So in that sense, I can understand why the delegates would insist that this is something that has been promised to, and this is something that was promised to every single delegate across all of the constituencies. But the part of the other kinds of demands that delegates make on candidates, you're right. It's a two-way street. It's a demand and supply thing. Sometimes the candidates supply, and sometimes the delegates demand, and they sort of find a way to meet at it. I think we must also find a way to impress upon the delegates that you don't want this monetization to become a permanent part of the electoral process. I know others have explained it as well. It's their cocoa season. These candidates, once they win, you never see them in the constituency, etc., etc. And therefore, this is the only time that they can extract as much as they can from those candidates. But I go back to my preferred solution, which is if you move the primary from a purely delegate system to an open primary where every registered member of the party can vote in a primary, I think you raise the bar and make it more difficult and more challenging for some of these extractive behaviors to occur on the demand side, which is the side of the delegates, right? Because if a number of delegates were to go to a candidate where a candidate knows that, well, I have to deal with an entire constituency, but not a specific number of candidates, a specific number of delegates, I think you can at least reduce the incidence of this as much as possible.
All right. Now, we've spoken about some of the negatives, the ride sharing, the money sharing, and then the promise about TNT. But you're looking at 355,000 plus people who went to the polls, so to speak, to elect a presidential candidate and also to participate in the primaries. Of course, we know that there are some areas where the parliamentary primaries were not held. Ayawaso West Wuogon, among others, about 16 of them for some reasons explained by the party. And these will eventually be held in a special session. But apart from these few negatives that we saw, we also saw the rancorous scenes in Ningo Pram Pram. But generally, how successful was this event? Looking at the hundreds of thousands of delegates who voted, yes, in some instances, voting started maybe 2 hours late, but even in national elections, that happens sometimes. How successful, on a scale of 1 to 10, was this election for you in terms of the delegates and their actions, in terms of the candidates themselves and their actions, in terms of all the other surrounding issues? How successful was it?
Very successful. And just like you said, you're talking about 300 and something thousand delegates. So that even the size of the electorate alone that participated in this, I think it was maybe a year ago, I had to do a presentation on intra-party democracy. And I actually took time to read the entire constitutions of our two major political parties. And that day, I walked away saying to myself, it's no easy job trying to keep this administrative infrastructure that they have in place, all the way from the smallest unit being either the ward or the polling station, all the way up to the national level with branch officers, constituency officers, regional officers, national executives, all of that. I mean, it takes quite a lot to build a political party and most especially to find both the human and the financial resources to keep such an infrastructure going. And then when you think about the fact that only a few days before the scheduled primary, a wrench was thrown in through this lawsuit, and that uncertainty of, is there going to be an injunction, and imagine all the logistic preparations that he had made if the process had been injuncted and then they had to rethink of a different process. At the same time, because you also don't know how a court process will turn out, I'm sure, on the back end, the executives had to start thinking of a plan B, just in case, the lawsuit had been successful in getting that injunction against the process. So when you weigh all of that, and how it finally, turned out, yes, with some of the few incidents that you've pointed to, I think you really have to commend the party for having pulled up a very successful primary election.
Now, about 1/7 of the population that was expected to vote didn't actually vote on D-Day. Explanations were given. Now, I mentioned 355,000 plus. We had just about 300,000 actually voting, with a little over 3,000 going to Kojo Bonsu and 297,000 plus going to John Dramani Mahama, which accounts for the 98.9% we're talking about. But for those 50,000 plus, we're told some of them had to go to different parts of the country, constituencies, regions, to undertake different activities. Some of them, too, on the back of the injunction or the court process, felt that the process probably wouldn't take place, which is why some of them, halted their travel. Some of them were attending to family matters and all of that. But if you look at the voter turnout, 355,000 plus, and you have 300,000 plus voting, what does it say about the process? What does it say about the commitment of delegates to elect the right people?
Yeah, I mean, say for some of the challenges that you talked about that prevented some of them from being able to participate in the process, right? To get that kind of turnout, again, for me, it shows interest, but it also shows commitment on the part of delegates, because this is one of their key responsibilities. The party, rules and processes, leaves it in their hands to determine who is going to lead the party as their presidential candidate into a major election, but also leaves it in their hands who is going to, who are the people who are going to be their parliamentary candidates. And so this is not a responsibility that this is a responsibility you expect delegates to show up and take very seriously. And so, say for some of the uncertainties, it was also a really good sign of their commitment to the party to participate in the party's internal democratic process and show up, to vote and select their flag bearer, as well as select various parliamentary candidates. In the places where the parliamentary primaries could not happen, I'm sure the party is putting in mechanisms and plans for when they can hold their primaries as well, so they can wrap the whole thing up.
Let's talk about the former president, John Dramani Mahama. Some say he is fourth time lucky or 4 times lucky. He is here again. I don't know whether we can reduce it to luck, but he is here again, and he's won by an overwhelming majority. When you look at the fact that the party has reposed confidence in him on the back of everything that has happened, you remember the rhetoric from Dr. Kwabena Dufour, for example, that these are the situations, we need a new face, we need a fresh, agenda. Kojo Bonsu, for example, saying that, the former president is mired with too much, there's too much dirt that has been slung at him, including the tag of corruption. So you need someone else to come and steady the ship. We have John Dramani Mahama back in pole position with an overwhelming mandate from the party. What do you think this could mean going into election 2024, especially as the MPP, the ruling administration, is even yet to conduct its own process? We're looking at somewhere in September or November, so to speak. What do you think this means for them? Because already they have had some sort of split front. So many different figures, some leaving office to campaign. Mahama has been campaigning all along. What picture does this paint?
So I think for delegates, I mean, I'm not in their heads, but I'm sure going into any primary election, the main question on the minds of delegates is, among the choices that we have, who is the one best placed or best positioned to lead us into this election and help us win? So if it's an incumbent, there's no issue about that, but it's, okay, who can put the best challenger to help us wrestle political power, from our main political rivals? And if you look at the choices that the NDC had in the lead up to the primary, I used to say that, look, I am no soothsayer, but I just didn't see anyone who stood tall like the former president in this primary process. I mean, yes, he won the 2012 election, he lost 2016, he lost 2020, right? But he's also shown deep commitment to the party in good times and in bad times, right? Even after the loss of 2016, he never abandoned the party. He never stopped participating in, the party's politics, the party's issues. If you look at the last year or two, this whole reorganization efforts, the length and breadth that he's traveled in terms of the party, again, for me, he stood very tall. And the other thing too is, a lot of people used to say, look, this is just a coronation. The former president is going to win this primary anyway. But I also
I think I even heard Elvis Efri-Ankra, the party's head office, saying that it was just going to be, there already was the chosen one.
Right. But I think it also says something about the character and commitment of the former president to think that everybody, both those in and outside of the NDC, come saying he's going to win this thing anyway. For him to still make the time and the effort to visit every single constituency, right? I'm a keen observer of our politics. If you look at his campaign tracker, you would have thought that if he was going to win anyway, he didn't have to make that investment because it was his anyway. But even knowing that it was his, this was a man who still invested time, resources, energy to show that he wasn't taking delegates for granted, to show that he was committed to the party, he was committed to the process. He was acting as if he was facing a serious competition. And for me, it spoke volumes of the kind of candidate that he had positioned himself to be. And therefore, I'm not surprised that, yes, we are all not surprised that he won. But I think more, the 98% is even a reaffirmation that through it all, the party has come to also recognize what he brings to them in terms of political assets, despite some of the political liabilities that he may have, that he's still the chosen one, the one that they have the utmost faith in to lead them into the 2024 election.
Hold for me. Let me bring in Professor Ransford Jampo, Professor of Political Science at the University of Ghana. Prof, a very good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Hi, Ben. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. It's really good to have you. What do you make of what happened on Saturday? It started early in the day, and from Ningo Pram to Pru East to wherever you want to look at, elections were held. There were 16 primaries in terms of the parliamentary that were not held. But as far as the presidential, John Dramani Mahama was elected for the fourth time. 98.9% was what he garnered. And there were some who fell along the way, others who stood the test of time. What did you make of the entirety of the process, the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Well, before we talk about the process, I would want to highlight the robustness and resilience of the party leadership in providing direction, hope, and confidence, even in the face of confusion and uncertainty. That the uncertainties and confusion that characterize events prior to the conduct of their primaries. The essence of leadership is also to give hope to people. And so when people were confused and people were uncertain and unsure as to whether the primaries were going to come off. They provided that kind of leadership. They are bold, they are resilient. They insisted that regardless of whatever is happening, they will go ahead or the primaries will come off. And I was impressed with that kind of robustness and resilience that they demonstrated. And I'm saying that other party leaders must emulate these kinds of attitudes that are needed very much in managing the internal affairs of political parties. Leadership should be bold enough to be able to rein people in, to be able to provide hope, to be able to ensure fairness and justice. No one should be seen to be above the law in any political party organization. And to be able to ensure that all are equal, it requires a certain leadership trait that is tough, resilient, and robust. And so I commend Chairman Masih Kwete and the rest who provided that resilience and robustness and gave assurance and hope to their party followers and supporters, even when there was a lot of confusion. Now, aside that, yes, John Mahama won. And before then, we had heard others who were saying some other candidates were going to be winning by 60% and all that. See, electoral contestation that is based on emotions, electoral contestation that is based on the desire to teach people a lesson, electoral contestation that is not based on scientific and empirical facts garnered in genuine research, is bound to result in humiliatory defeats. Socrates said, an unexamined life is not worth living. And so if you want to contest any election, you examine yourself, you examine your chances. How do you do so? You don't do so by listening to people who are already peaked. You don't do so by listening to people who are already disgruntled. You don't do so by listening to people who are bitter and emotional. Bitterness is not empirical proof of one positive electoral fortune. You do so by listening to credible voices, people who are neutral in whatever dispute you may have, and so they will be able to give you informed and well-reasoned perspective as to your electoral fortune, how your electoral fortune will be. But it appears that some didn't go this route. They surrounded themselves with all manner of people who told them what the kind of things that they wanted to hear. It's important that leaders must always be mindful of the caliber of people they listen to. Sometimes some leaders are blindfolded by bitter people. Some leaders are blindfolded by people who are self-seeking and self-serving. Some leaders tend to be blindfolded by people who are only looking forward to milking them dry.
Right.
And in that case, they will not tell you the truth. And so I am of the view that the people who surrounded the other aspirants and contestants refused to tell their aspirants the truth, the genuine truth. I heard somebody saying Dr. Dipo was going to win by 60%. I said, where from this kind of assertion? And which survey produced that kind of result? And so that must be emphasized. Beyond that, John Mahama, apart from those who went on the party's primaries unopposed, I think this particular outcome is unprecedented. It's the first time that you have a presidential aspirant garnering 99%.
So 98.9 to be specific.
Yes, if you do the approximation, when we went to primary school and they were teaching us mathematics, if it is about 5, you approximate it. And
Right.
99%.
Right.
Okay, and this is quite, it points to a certain overwhelming party support for his candidature, and I think he has done well. There were issues that came up in the election about voters register, about late start, about fighting altercations here and there. But we must move towards the point where our elections, be it internal or national, would be uneventful. We must move towards that point. But we must also admit that as an electoral or as a transitional democracy, some of these things are always there. That is not to glorify it, and that is not to say we shouldn't do anything about them. We must move and work hard towards achieving event-free elections,
right?
Seamless elections. But these things that happen are not enough to mar the beauty of what happened.
I will come back to you briefly on some of those incidents that supposedly marred partly the entire development. And I'll come back to you on what you make of Kojo Bonsu and his effort, and Dr. Kwabena Dufo and his effort even as he pulled out of the race. But let me bring in Kofi Adams. He is Member of Parliament for Buem constituency. He contested and won by the skin of his teeth. Mr. Adams, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
I would appreciate it if you could speak up just a little for me. I'm struggling to hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kofi. What was it like going through this process? You won by 13 votes, and there are those who say your opponent, Mumuni, gave you a real run for your money. What do you make of the happenings on Saturday?
Well, let me say good morning to your listeners. And delegate election by nature is quite a complex election. And you go in with the intention to win and the strategy to win. Whatever you will do to get more than 50% of the delegates on your side, especially if it's a one-on-one election, it makes it a bit okay for you. And so I went in with a strategy to win. And at the end of the day, I secured that victory. But moving forward, the party has to put in place some ethics committee that governs campaigning so that contestants could not engage in some kind of campaigning. For example, if you assemble delegates, many of whom are only looking for their self-good, and announce to them that the MP share of common funds is meant for them and not for the general development that is being done. And that if an MP spends such money to do water, to renovate schools, and to reshape roads where central government, of course, is supposed to do but not doing, he's not thinking about your welfare, and that you are the ones who sent him there. And that if you do things that are personally affecting you and you only, and that is what that candidate intends to do, that the common fund will be dedicated for them, will be used for this and that. It makes the campaigning a bit difficult, and some of these delegates are very vulnerable, truly vulnerable. And so they will tell you, that the general development you are doing goes to everybody. And so we are delegates, we are the kingmakers. We want something about us and us only. But at the end of the day, more than 50% of the delegates saw the good in the work that we have done in such a short time, which they also know that in 2 years, it is not possible to be able to cover everybody. It's just not possible to be able to cover everybody. And so they understood the message, and I won with more than 50%.
So you feel it was that message that got you to cross the line?
Oh, sure.
What do you make of Mumuni's threat? I mean, did you expect that he would give you such a run for your money?
Well, I expected to, because one thing I didn't do was during the internal elections was to just leave the executives as they were. Don't forget that in 2019, I contested with three other persons, including the incumbent MP then. And I garnered 388 votes. And all the other three together, including the sitting MP, got 380 votes. The then MP got 280, Mumuni got 90-something, and the third person got about 29 or so votes. Leaving that structure the same as it is, it was the former MP gunning up with Mumuni and the rest and campaigning on one side against me. The only radio station we have in the constituency was that of the former MP. He actually banned everybody from either granting me interview or saying anything about me. I confronted him, but I told him that I will campaign on the ground and not on radio to be able to win. And I have proven that. So not to have a platform such as that equally affected, but I did the good work that I have to do, engage the delegates directly, alongside performing my national assignment, and I won.
All right. It is also testament, I mean, the fact that you may have been locked out of that media facility, not allowed to share your opinion, but it still points to the fact that maybe the sort of groundswell for you may not have been there as much. But I'll give you time to respond to that later. Let me bring in Ibrahim Adams Mumuni, who took you on and also nearly actually won that race. Mr. Mumuni, a very good morning to you. Hello, Mr. Mumuni, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Great. What would you say was that magic wand that you waved and made you come so close, agonizingly close to actually pipping Kofi Adams of Buem? He's a big figure in the NDC and in that constituency. What do you think made you come this close this time?
Well, first and foremost, let me say a big thank you to the good people of Buem, and more especially the delegates for giving me such resounding support, even though it could not culminate into the victory I was expecting. But I must say my election message was premised on that of hope. And like Prof said, leadership is about giving hope to the people. And this is not the first time I'm contesting. The second time I'm actually contesting. Now, if you look at my track record, I've been able to lobby as much as 29 boreholes into the constituency, dotted across every part of the constituency. And you know, my constituency is one that is largely agrarian. And so I've been having interactions with them even after my first contest. And I realized there's not been much support in that area. And of course, given my knowledge about parliamentary politics, I'm not too sure that it will be out of place if, as a matter of policy, I decide that when giving the mandate, I'm going to inject a lot more support in that area of the agro-business by way of supporting them in the area of inputs like fertilizers and weedicides. So that exactly was my message to them, and that provided them with hope. It is not about their personal comfort, but it was about something that was going to be given to support their businesses, which is the agro-business they do. And they felt like this is what they wanted to hear. And of course, it resonated with them. I also, again, thought that they need to give them some insurance policy that, of course, will cover them in some aspect of their lives in the area of death, in the area of sicknesses or accidents, which, of course, are inevitable happenings in the lives of all humans. So we sent that message out there, and the back to school policy was once and when their members come to them with complaints of their towards going to start their secondary education, some bit of support here and there are needed. And so I also looked at what Joyce Lintete had been doing as part of his back to school policy and thought that look, it's important we also replicate the same thing here. There wasn't anything big that I was promising that was
these were the very things that you these were the very things that you did that, you know, endeared you to the people.
Sure. And even in the course of the campaign, I was still spending money, repairing 40 boreholes in the various communities, and even providing personal assistance in the area of agro inputs to the delegates as part of my support to them. Because I really needed it. So I knew if I had won the seat, then that would have given me a sound footing to make it a matter of policy, where I can now make it, a way of injecting more support in that area to get them to also...
Quick question. I was going elsewhere, but because you... Quick question. Just let's have a conversation. Let's tone it down so that we can address as many issues as possible. Now that you've lost, are you going to continue with this drive?
Well, as I speak to you, we are drilling a borehole in a community called Akakpo EP School. I've connected with my my donors to come down, and I have 3 boreholes already on standby awaiting commission. And I can let me announce on your platform that I've also had an approval of 28 more boreholes for this year alone, which is yet to be rolled out. So which is already captured in the name of Buem. So there's no way I can take the projects to. It still be coming to Buem, win or lose. So that is it. It's about impact. It's about making impact in the lives of the people, giving them hope that you are there for them. So in this project that we'll be doing them, we've been doing and we'll be doing them without resort to common fund. So I wasn't coming in, basically to come and do projects because of common fund. I was bringing back solid track record of what I've done and what I'll be doing. But what I promised to do in the area of agro-business and so on could have been supported by the common fund. So it wasn't anything big. And I never had any media leverage in the constituency during the primary. I never did any media engagement with anybody.
Kofi Adams says he suffered a blackout because the former MP and some of you came together and you ousted him, so he couldn't even get to that media facility. No one would grant him an interview, but he was on the ground, and that's how he won. And you're saying you also didn't have any benefits from that end?
At all. I never did. And if you look at my campaign team, the former MP wasn't part of my campaign team. I'm not even aware that the former MP was campaigning openly for me. I've never seen any of my campaign trail, and I've never heard anywhere that he was campaigning for me. If he did, and my brother is aware, then that's fine. But I never knew about it. We were solid on the ground with our message of hope to the people. They bought into the message. Unfortunately, this is where we are right now. But we keep doing taps on events now, and our message to final results with them come one day.
Do you feel disappointed? Do you feel let down by the delegates? Very briefly, before I go back to Kofi Adams, do you feel let down by the delegates?
Come again?
Did you get that question? Do you feel disappointed? Obviously, you would be disappointed somewhat, but do you feel let down by the delegates?
Yeah. On the contrary, I salute the Buem delegates.
Right.
I salute them for the confidence they had in me. If you look at the way the campaign went, day and night, and I made sure I went to every town and every hamlet, to sell my message to them. There are areas that cars don't even go. You need to go there with motorbikes, and some other places you need to walk because motorbikes cannot go there. But I was with them, in the trenches. And so for them to give me this number of votes from my previous 97 to 431 meant that my message really got down well with them, resonated well with them. And I'm not sure that the next time I show my face, I'm sure we'll be talking about the festival altogether. So I'm very much grateful for the support, the overwhelming support they showed me. I saw change in their faces. I saw change in their mood. They really needed change. Not only delegates, the most members of the constituency were also looking for the same change. We never went down there with a message that was not possible to do or that was beyond the MP2. We felt that they are recent, they were doable.
Can you hear me? All right. Mr. Mumini, just hold for me. We'll try and work on your connection and get you back. Kofi Adams, so you've heard his response. He says he didn't benefit from any media, whatever, campaign or whatever. He was not even aware that the former MP was campaigning for him and that he's been on the ground doing work. And it shows from 97 votes to 431. That is massive.
I'm not going to...
Mr. Adams, just hold for me. You also cannot say that maybe it was just the media blackout from your end that culminated in this, because this gap is huge. And I was just about to confirm from Mumuni, to all intents and purposes, it would appear he would want to contest you in the next time round. And that could be very, very difficult. What's your take?
Well, I'm surprised that you will be predicting what will happen.
I am not making a prediction. I am only saying that if he moved from 97 to 431...
You have asked a question. Let me answer.
I'm only also telling you, putting my question into context.
Answer your question.
Go ahead, Mr. Adams.
First and foremost, I will not spend time on what the former MP did, but to go straight to the point, that we have about 42 communities in this constituency. In just this short time, I have drilled over 80 boreholes. There is not a single community that has not received either a borehole or two from me. So when the issue of water, I have more than covered. Lifetime Wells have drilled boreholes in virtually every community. But of course, you cannot have a borehole in everybody's home. So when you drill to maybe one located in the lower part, another in the upper town, maybe those in the middle, possibly where a delegate lives, thinks that the water must be closer to him or her. But in drilling boreholes, they have to first check availability of the water. So the mere fact that some executives live in a particular area and you didn't locate the borehole in that area, and they get angry, thinking that if you could get the water at a location maybe 200 meters away from them, then it is possible to also get water just by them. Engineering sense, that is not possible. So if you get angry as a result of that, I don't see how I could get that problem resolved too. There's already an insurance, a health insurance system. The only problem you are faced with is the availability of the infrastructure. So I spend more time building up the CHIPS compounds to raise them to standard so they can serve everybody, whether you are an executive or you are not an executive. For example, in the eastern part of WIM, there is not a single health facility that could take you through basic lab tests. What I have done is to raise the standard by providing them a standardized lab facility and negotiated with an institution to come and build a further lab. Currently, as we speak, part of the funds have been released to the District Health Directorate for them to start the implementation of such a project. Other areas including education. We continue to support hundreds of tertiary students who gain admission and could not pay their fees. We extend support to them heavily. And this cut across, whether you are an executive son or not, we give to everybody who qualifies and is in need. Right. It is not free money. So these are things we are already doing. Agriculture inputs, we continue to support them. But don't forget that the common fund, as people think, is not an unending facility. maybe maximum when you get will be about 200 and something thousand for a year. And that comes with a budget, areas that you want to use it for. And so when people go are promising on that same source that could not do the many things that they are saying, you sit there, you should know something basic about insurance. If somebody promised that I will give all of you, over 1,000 of you, insurance, how are you going to pay the premium? From common fund? Is it sustainable? But the people will clap for it because they don't understand. What I would want to do is to have the facility properly renovated.
So are you suggesting, Mr. Adams, I beg your pardon, are you suggesting that your counterpart or your opponent was using dubious policies to sort of fleece the people?
I won't call it dubious, but maybe the person don't even understand. Part of the message they put out there was that they will do such things from the salary. And maybe they don't even know the salary of an MP. That is not doable. That's not possible. But such things are put out there. And for someone, me for example, they claim that I've been available since 1992. I've worked with President Rawlings, I've worked with President Mills, I've worked with President Mahama, and then they haven't seen much from me.
Okay.
Well, the truth is that I only left university in 1999. I never worked with President Rawlings in office. But I've done so many things in such a short time that people think that I've been involved in governance way back even in 1992. And that is the message that was spread all over.
All right. So I think the point has been made. Kofi Adams will return to that hot seat and contend with the other contenders for the Buem constituency. Kofi Adams, we're grateful for your time with us this morning, sir, and we wish you the very best. Let me bring in Mumuni once more, if I still have him. And my final questions to you, very briefly. One, looking at the gap from 97 votes to 431 this time round, will you contest for that slot again in 20 or ahead of the next election? And secondly, are you going to work with Kofi Adams? You may have gone against him, but will you work with him for a win for your party? Hello, Mr. Mumuni. Mr. Mumuni, if you can hear me, two quick questions. Will you contest for the Buem seat again the next time? And two, will you work with Kofi Adams to secure victory for the NDC? It appears, it's unfortunate, we've lost Mumuni. Unfortunately, your connection is not helping us this morning. We have Professor Ransford Jampo still on. We also have Dr. John Osai Kwapon. Let me start with you, Professor Jampo. Having listened to all the banter, especially in the Buem constituency and other matters, you can rope that in and also let me know. Kojo Bonsu, Dr. Kwabena Dufour, and their performance in the last election. Dr. Dufour, withdrew, yet some people still went ahead to give him a few votes. What do you make of these two candidates as well, apart from what we've heard from the Buem constituency?
Well, I think my initial remarks answer this question. That an unexamined life is not worth living. That's what Sukrit said. In my view, they didn't examine themselves well. They didn't surround themselves with the right caliber of people who could have given them the right information to determine as to whether they should contest or they shouldn't contest. There were issues that we raised. Some of them were very legitimate, but regardless of the legitimate issues they raised, in my view, they had no business contesting in the first place because there was a certain groundswell support that had been shown in favor of President Mahama, and so they should have made them
rescind their decision to contest. As for delegates, the contesting elections, you see, the system is such that people are poor and hungry, and so they will take your money and assure you. You would not get any sincere delegate who will look into your face and tell you that, please don't contest and that you wouldn't win. They will assure you of victory. But it's up to you to do your own independent scientific and empirical assessment of the situation to determine whether you would win or you won't win. And like I said earlier, if you don't do this and choose to surround yourself with people who have issues with the existing, with the party, if you surround yourself with people who are bitter, then, like I said, bitterness is no substitute for empirical research survey to determine one's chances of electoral victory. And so that is it. I was very much expecting Dr. Abu-Baidoo to rise from the word group, pitch camp with his own son in the constituency, and to be campaigning for his son. Because for you, an 80-year-old man, you're already retired. And so every father must seek the best interest of the son or the child. So he could have spent much time campaigning for his son, rather than doing what he did, which in my view also contributed to the slim electoral defeat of the son. You know, some delegates are die-hard party people, and they tend to be unforgiving. And so what he did that created some state of confusion and chaos in the party, the preparation towards the primaries, also contributed to what happened to the son.
Interesting thoughts. Let me now bring in, before I go to Dr. Titus Bayo, who himself accounted very well for himself. Let me bring in Ibrahim Mumuni from the Buem constituency. We lost you earlier, so I was posing two questions to you, Mr. Mumuni. One, are you going to contest for the slot in the NDC Buem constituency in the next election, looking at how close you got this time? And two, are you willing to work with Kofi Adams, the one who won, in terms of getting the seat for the NDC in 2024?
Okay, so I'll take the second one first. I mean, in the last elections, when I lost, he is aware I came down with him, even donated 200 t-shirts in his name with him and John Mahama, and I was on the ground with him, foot for foot, campaigning for the party. So for me, that's not going to be a difficulty at all, because the party's interest for me is paramount now that the contest is over. When he calls on me, my doors are available, I will come over to support you. Now, in the issue of coming back
does he have to call on you before you support him?
I think that it's a calling. That's how I see it. For me, it's a calling. I need to see there should be a reason why you contest for positions. And this time around, I felt my brother could have done more than he's done. And so I need to come into feeling, and that's why I came. And so it comes back to him. If he goes ahead to give the kind of performance we expect, that will move forward for all of us to believe that indeed he's working. Why not? We will allow him to continue. But again, if we realize that there's still a lot of space that needs to be filled in terms of his performance, like we feel it is now, we will still come into feeling about it. And so it's open to that way.
The second bit about going in the next election.
Yes, if I get it right, it is a yes or no upon answer, depending on the dynamic at the time of contesting. Like I said, if there's the need for us to go in because his performance is below average, we will have to come in to salvage the people, because it's about the people. And that is not personal interest. Yeah.
Ibrahim Mumuni actually lost by just some 13 votes to Kofi Adams, the incumbent member of parliament. Thank you, Mr. Mumuni. Let's now cross over to Dr. Titus Bayo, of course, formerly heading the Ghana Medical Association and as General Secretary. Well, he went for the Lambusi constituency slot, and guess what? He won. Dr. Bayu, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners.
What made you go for the Lambusi slot, especially with the sort of hot competition that was in there? You've ousted the incumbent, and you have got, the fan base just in some sort of elation. How did you do it?
Well, I think we want to give glory to God and thanks to the Almighty for giving us electoral victory at this stage. So I would say that it's not a singular effort, but it's a group effort. And yes, why did I go to Lambusi? I think when I declared my intention, I made it known. Sorry for the poor quality of my voice, but I'm sure you will understand. But I made it known that I was responding to calls from the constituents, from traditional leaders, from party people, that there was a need for a change in the leadership of our party in Lambusi. And I heeded the call, and my delegates kept their side of the bargain, which was giving me the nod. And I'll be quick to add that the incumbent and the other contestants gave me a very good way, and we all have decided to respect the verdict of the delegates, which is a good thing. But what we see in numbers is a combination of hard work of my team and I, roaming through the nooks and crannies of Lambusi and making sure that we sold our message to the delegates, which they all bought into very well.
Did you expect the sort of outcome, the sort of victory? Of course, you were sure you would win, but looking at the contenders, did you feel you could win by such a margin?
I would say I was expecting an even larger margin than this. But dynamics, my initial estimate, I thought it would have been larger than this. But, I mean, it's politics, so you can't be too certain of anything. And I did mention on your platform before that every politician must be guided by the cautioning from the late Sir John that we fear delegates. So I was expecting a good win. And I'm happy with what I got. What is important is that there is a win, and that the win is massive enough for us to all unite, so that the delegates have spoken one voice. But it's not that easy to be an incumbent, and one who has won this very election 3 times. So you'll be overly ambitious if you expect that you will just win with such a landslide. But I put in so much effort that I expected a bit more than this.
Now that you've got the slot, you've won the battle, but the war, and war used here in figurative terms, not in a literal sense, awaits you in 2024. How are you going to shape up for that? What has been the reaction of those you contested, including the incumbent? How are you going to rope them into your team to ensure that you win in 2024?
So it's winning in 2024, as far as the NDC is concerned and Lambusi, we need only one thing, and that is unity. We need unity and unity and unity. So on the day of declaration, all contestants agreed that we're going to work together. But it has not ended there. I subsequently had personal meetings with the incumbents. I've had calls to the other contender, and trying to meet various teams so that we resolve our various campaign teams and eventually form a united team to work for that victory. This, will take time. Losing an election
it's not that easy for anybody. The pain of the loss, it takes time to heal, and I can recognize that. But the healing is made easier based on how you, the winner, also behave or react. So celebration has been moderate. I have spoken to my supporters to be willing to accept others into our fold, and we are not sitting down waiting for them to come over. We are actually approaching them to bring them in. The greatest hurdle that we need to cross is getting a united NDC in Lambose. And that has been my motto in the campaign. I said we are united for victory. Once I achieve complete unification, there is no way they are losing in Lambose. The track record shows that anytime NDC is united, we win. Even when we have lost the seat on the 2 previous terms, our presidential candidate won massively. In the 2020 election, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama had over 70% of the vote, and we lost the seat. It will tell you the love that the people of Lambuse have for NDC and the appreciation that they have of the contribution of NDC to this system. So we are working internally to bring that unity, and we are being cautious of that. Personally, I'm very, 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 very conscious of it, and I'm making sure that I speak well and relate well with my colleagues. I mean, one interesting thing is that I'm the youngest of the 3 candidates.
Right.
Yeah, so once I behave with the humility and the respect that is deep, and I cause my elders that, I don't see anything that will prevent the unity. Prior to this, I had met all of them before and pledged to conduct a very decorous campaign, which I did. That as may happen in politics, a follower might have said something that does not please your opponent. And that will be the reason why you need to iron out these little things. But personally, none of them can accuse me of ever saying it that attacks their character, their person, or their campaign. And so I think it will be very easy for us to unite.
All right. Dr. Titus Bayo, we're grateful for your time and we wish you the very best as you embark.
I'm grateful for your time as well.
Well, that was Dr. Titus Bayo, who contested in the Lambuse constituency. We're going to wrap the conversation with Professor Ransford Jampo and Dr. John Osai Kwapong, a CDD fellow. Gentlemen, I want your brief take on the performance of Kojo Bonsu and Dr. Kwabena Duffuor. Then I want you to contemplate those 17 members of parliament from the NDC who lost their slots, including the likes of Dela Sowa in Kpando, the likes of Sufaya Akwaku in Domiabra Obom, where actually we saw that other gentleman, one Ayite, or is it Ayi, sharing rice in that constituency. Then we have ABF Hussaini, Sagnarigo MP. In fact, I am reminded that one of his famous quotes, if a man dies in a marketplace, there's no need announcing it. We shall miss his proverbs. There's also Edward Bauer in Bongo who lost, and then Dr. Kwabena Donko in Pru East. What are your expectations around these? What are the causal factors? What should the party be doing moving forward? I'll start with you, Dr. Osai Kwapong.
So, whenever incumbents lose, particularly in the party primary for parliament, one of the things that I asked myself is, to what extent was there dissatisfaction in the constituency to the point where their challengers were able to convince enough delegates to kick them out and replace them with someone else? I go back to, I think, Professor Usu Mensah, University of Ghana Political Science. He did a study on Parliament back in, I think it was 2018. It was extremely insightful, very informative, and I think it serves as a framework for trying to understand some of the angst that sometimes constituencies feel about the actions or inactions of their members of parliament, and how it can help you then understand why sometimes some of these incumbents would lose their seats. I remember he captured things like, lack of development, lack of presence, that presence sometimes being an office where they could regularly interact with a member of parliament, things like that. I recall that when that report came out, both MPs on both sides of the aisle for the first time were united in sort of rejecting the work that he had done on the basis that the work of a parliamentarian is lawmaking and that they are not development agents, etc., etc. But again, when you see them campaign, they campaign as development agents. I've never seen an MP candidate going around the constituency saying, vote for me because I want to be the best lawmaker and pass the best laws in Ghana. No. Most of the time, they promote or promise things that are development oriented. Jobs, roads, schools, those things. So it will be very interesting to find out in these constituencies where the incumbents lost, the extent to which some of these things that was captured by Professor Usumeza's work a couple of years ago was a reflection of why they lost. Even if you look at the interview you had with the candidate who almost beat
Ibrahim Mumuni.
Yes, remember he talked about how he could have done more. There was still more to be done. There was some space left, and therefore he felt he could come in and complete that work or do more for the constituency. So it will be very interesting to see what the presence or absence of some of these factors. But I think some amount of dissatisfaction with the incumbent surely did contribute to their loss in the constituencies in which they lost.
All right. Any final words as we wrap the conversation?
Well, it's over now. They've had a good, successful election. I think the next thing that we are all looking forward to is the MPP's primary that will come up much later in the year, and whether the confirmed choice of the NDC flag bearer, and particularly the parliamentary candidates that they are going to put up, would influence, shape some of the choices they make in November when they select their flag bearer, and then early next year when they select their parliamentary candidates.
We're grateful, Doc, for your time with us this morning. Dr. John Osai-Kwapong is a CDD fellow. We had Professor Ransford Jampo, political scientist with the University of Ghana. We also had other contestants joining the conversation. Dr. Titus Bayuo, formerly General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, who contested in the Lambusi constituency. We had Kofi Adams in the Buem constituency and Ibrahim Mumuni, who lost to him, but with some 13 votes thereabouts. Well, that has been our reaction analysis of the primaries from last Saturday. We're going to take a break. When we return, there's a lot more action on the AM show. We'll be right back.
A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for staying here on the AM show. Just gone by, Benjamin and our guests were discussing the fallout of that NDC primaries that elected John Dramani Mahama as its flag bearer for the 2024 elections. We saw some major upsets as well, but we will be bringing you more on that in subsequent bulletins. It's now time for us to discuss other matters, and This has to do with that unfortunate incident that occurred sometime last week where we lost some children due to a boat incident. We understand that those victims have been laid to rest, but there are still reactions after that event, and the International Child Development Program, in partnership with other NGOs and organizations, has expressed its condolence to the families, but is also demanding more from government in terms of building infrastructure for transportation on river bodies and also for school children. Country Director Joyce Lanyo joins us here on the AM show. Good morning to you, Joyce, and thank you so much for agreeing to expand those thoughts that you've captured in that press statement. So let's start on the bit of how you analyze these boat incidents that have occurred since the beginning of the year and your appreciation of that.
Thank you very much. And I'm grateful for the opportunity. Once again, good morning to you. And I'm really, really sad to talk about this issue. You know, for some time now, there has been a series of boat disasters in this country. Some or majority of them affecting children in the bid to go and access education. And we find it very worrying. So we have come together to issue this statement to bring to government's attention this very tragic incident that has been happening over the period. And we are going to pick it from January to May 12. That was just last week. And the number of boat accidents that has happened, we find it as something that we need to address immediately. In fact, the issue is, what did these children go to seek? They went to seek education. And we, within the education sector, have agreed to certain protocols that will support our quality education. Therefore, it is a fundamental human right for these children to demand for the education that would improve their livelihoods, families' livelihoods, communities, and indeed the whole country. So if children, including adults, in the bid to transport to the other side to get education that will require these developments, I mean, the necessary infrastructure should be put in place. And on this note, I want to express my sincere condolence to the families of the Fana-Weja disaster and the other disasters, and to say that we commensurate with them and that we will continue to do our best to seek that government intervenes and come out with the key strategies or the key policies that will enhance the quality education that we are talking about, that will enhance the protocols that we have assigned ourselves to in terms of the UNCRC, United Nations Rights on the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and any other protocol that will enhance the child's survival and development. And so I have enumerated from January 24th, 8 pupils were confirmed dead. Now, 18th March, 5 people were killed. Then on the 27th, 11 people were also affected and they died. Then the last, but not the least, is the 12th May 2023. A lot more is happening that we have not acknowledged or we have not heard of them. So this statement is to bring to light the issue of riverboat travels by school children, the issue about who is in charge of these boats, because we are told these boats had to the extent of a year and a half old child in the boat. So who was taking care of this child? Who was the chauffeur for these canoes? And the schools the communities within which these things happen? If there are no schools, what are the assemblies, the MMDAs doing?
And on that score, I'd just like to remind viewers of the response of the Minister for Education when the Sini East incident occurred. He did mention that there were some engagements that were going to happen after that. In fact, he said the community in Sini East where the children were moving to school from deserves a school because of the numbers, and then the children there deserves a school. So he said there was some form of discussion going to be had about, communities, island communities and building infrastructure. He did admit at the time that at the ministry, previously there was no planning department, a department that was auditing, doing all these kind of checks and balances, but the one has been created, and so we should expect that some of these things will be dealt with. Also, we were told that some life jackets were provided after that particular incident in island communities. In this particular one in Fana, for example, we are told by a local authority, a local person in authority, that there were life jackets provided. Unfortunately, they were not used, and so that's just by way of information. So, ma'am, let's move on to what you recommend. So it has been established that there are no safety protocols when it comes to transporting, especially children who are going to school on canoes. We've also established that sometimes it's actually not necessary for these children to move out of their communities to others for schooling, according to the minister himself. So what do you recommend be done in terms of protection on river bodies and even providing infrastructure for these school children?
Yeah, I appreciate what you have just said in terms of the action that the government is taking to get these strategies in place, the implements, so that there will be safety. But look, if you get to these places, there is no skilled officer or a driver or somebody that will ensure that whoever is transporting, whether school children, market women, or whatever, is going through these processes. Life jackets, the driver is well skilled and trained to carry people from one part of the river to the other side. We've had governments almost all the time coming out with some of these strategies, these knee-jerk reactions when things of this nature happen. But I bet you, if it had been a son or a daughter of one of these ministers, the reaction will not be the same as we are seeing now. Sometimes you look at their reaction, it is when the accident has happened that they bring in these life jackets and whatever to prove, NADMO to prove that, look, they are taking the steps. We are demanding that immediate action is taken in terms of enforcing safety regulations on these river fronts. I have taken a boat from Jambai to the other side to get to Karachi. At a point, there is nobody at the riverside. So you find these canoes transporting people from one side to the other side. My sister, it's scary. I know what I'm talking about, and I want to plead with authorities to take immediate action to build capacity, enforce safety regulations on these river fronts, training, capacity building, life jackets. There should be a dedicated office at the riverbank where somebody is there 24/7. Because sometimes these transportations happen in the night when there is nobody. There should be this officer there constantly monitoring people who are crossing from one side to the other. There should be investment in this infrastructure. Government should look for investment in this infrastructure, and it should be available. Where there are no schools, schools should be built in these communities. We have resources to do our politics. Why not take a bit of these resources to establish makeshift schools in these communities whilst we look at the bigger picture calling on to donor agencies to come in and support. Emergency response. Do we have any strategy for emergency response at these riverfronts? We know of water-led transport company. Are they dotted around all these riverfronts? Or is just a particular place? We are calling that there should be a strategy for emergency response. And like you said, if possible, children traveling from one side using the riverfront to the other side around this time should not, in my opinion, go to school. Because around this time, for example, this morning, it has rained heavily. And I am thinking that this type of rain is all around the country. Market women will be trying to cross to other side. School children, in spite of these accidents, will still insist that they want to go to school. So these emergency strategies should be in place like any other place where we have water transportation as our means of transport. Sorry. There should be constant awareness creation about safety measures if you really want to board these boats. Communities, parents, MMDAs should be involved. Civil society should be involved in these awareness creation and sensitization about what steps you need to take before you mount a boat. The driver of this boat should be somebody with the knowledge, the skills, and the competencies to be able to ride the boat to the safety of the other side, should be able to navigate. Because in these rivers, there are stumps of trees, or you never know, there will be a storm. And then that creates the problem. I'm sure that was what happened at Fana. So these are some of the strategies we are, and there should be constant monitoring. And enforcement of these strategies that we are putting in place so that our children will be safe. Our mothers crossing will be safe, including our fathers. So that everybody, because waterfront transportation in Ghana leaves much to be desired.
I appreciate your time here. Joyce Lanyo is Country Director of ICDP Ghana, and she's just been sharing her thoughts with us on that unfortunate incident that occurred last week involving school children who drowned trying to go to school. Unfortunately, what they do is to highlight the issues and make some recommendations to Ghana. ICDP is the International Child Development Program, and the statement it released was in partnership with other organizations that are seeking the welfare of children. Still on the AM show, it's been a rainy morning here in Accra, and unfortunately some commuters are stranded. My colleague Carlos Caloni joins us from 37, where we understand that some people are stranded. Hello, Carlos. What exactly is happening? What can you report?
Okay, so I'm currently at the 37 bus stop right in front of the 37 hospital, where I can see scores of commuters here. Many of them are workers who are actually on their way to work. I also see school children here who, as part of due to the rain, their journey have been cut short, and they are under the shed here at the bus stop. And in fact, on my way all the way from the Tetekwati interchange, I could see many of the bus stops filled up with people due to the rain. And so I have with me here David, who is going to tell us how long he's been here and where he was actually coming from and where he's going by start here. Hi, David.
Hi, bro.
Yeah, you're live on TV. So tell us, where were you actually coming from?
I'm coming from Nakoma, and I am unemployed. And someone told me I should come this morning to find some job for me. And I am here more than 2 hours. I called her, she said, because of the rain, I should wait. So I'm still waiting. And
I am confused because right now there is no job, and you're going to find a job. The person who will lead you to find a job is not coming. I don't know what to do right now.
Okay, so that is the impact you're feeling due to the rain. And so this is just one of the many commuters who are stranded here, and in fact, the impact on their lives cannot be measured.
Right, Carlos. Carlos Caloni, they're coming to us from the 37 area where some students and other commuters are stranded this morning going to school. The rains were quite heavy. We understand that it's still drizzling in parts of the city. Much later when we get interactive, just tell us what's happening where you are and how you are managing the rains. We'll take a quick breather. When we come back, we'll bring you more. Do stay.
Hello there. Welcome to another installment of Drive Safe with me, Benjamin Akakpo, where we all get to stay very aware, cognizant of driving safe on our roads to ensure that we are safe and that other motorists, pedestrians and others also stay safe. Every day we lose so many lives when it comes to the carnage on our roads. It can be prevented if we all try to be more careful. And that's why we have this segment, Drive Safe. We're back at Top Tech Transport and Logistics. But before we get into today's topic and engage our guest, so you think you know, here is today's road signal. Do you think you know what this means? All right, so at the tail end of today's segment, we'll get into the meaning of that road segment. But on that note, let me say hello once more to Cecil Gabra.
Hello, Ben.
He's CEO here. He's the boss of Top Tech Transport and Logistics. How are you doing? How is business? Top Tech.
Well, it's a little bit difficult, but we are still sailing
What's making
through.
it difficult?
Well, of course, it's difficult for companies to understand that if you have drivers, you should train them. You should train your own staff that you've given them vehicles. You know, we are into security training as well. You need to train your own staff to be security conscious. What about your home security? We do all those training, but people don't understand. Okay,
They think we don't need this.
They will think they don't need it. I just gave some lectures at my Rotary Club that those who are leaving their homes who put that big padlock are the victims. Okay, because you're telling everybody that I'm not at home. Of course, thieves are very intelligent than us. Yes, that's what they believe. So if you put a big padlock behind your gate, then you've told everybody that I'm not home, you can come. Okay, so these are some of the things that we do, and then that's the training we give, that don't use the padlock. You can use what we call the yield lock.
Right.
Look around you, there's nobody there, put a key there. So that's a tip for security at home. And you need to come over for more training.
Security tips. I think next time we come to, we'll focus on security as well. But let's go back to what we were talking about the last time, which has to do with the causes of road crashes. We spoke about the motorbike, tricycle, bicycle scenario and how a lot of them are not using their lights when they ought to be doing so. But there's another dynamic to this conversation. You would notice that when it comes to the tricycles, a lot of them are also causing accidents. How? By frustrating the heck out of other motorists. They are going so slowly, maybe they've piled, and in fact, I don't know whether they don't overload their vehicles, their tricycles, because you see it's packed so high, it makes them so slow, and especially when they are in a place where there's only enough space for one vehicle at a time. They block the other vehicles behind them. People are honking their horns, people are trying to get past them, and before you realize it, accident.
Well, that's very true, right? And that is why I know for a fact that the current Minister for Greater Accra is doing everything to take them off the road, right? It is not an easy task because he needs a document to do that. The airline doesn't specify that they should not come on that major road, okay? But then we could have a document or a supplementary to, work it out to take them off. They are quite a nuisance. Now, every road has, or let me say, we have our speed limits. If you're driving in Accra, the maximum speed limit is 50 kilometers per hour.
That is within the city?
Yes, in the city, right. When you're driving on the highway, you are traveling from Accra to, let's say, Cape Coast, maximum 80 kilometers per hour. And then on the motorway, 100 kilometers per hour. But this is a situation where the tricycle cannot even match up the 50 kilometers per hour. Maximum with their load could be about 20 kilometers per hour.
I'm sure some go at about 10. I mean, it's maddening.
Yes, and because of the load, they cannot drive at the edge of the road. Okay, so they would rather force and be in the middle of the road or take over the entire lane. Honestly speaking, if you are going to work and you have timed yourself that, look, by 8 o'clock you get to work, they are quite a nuisance and something must be done, okay? Have you realized that they don't have mirrors?
They don't. A lot of them don't.
As well as the Okada. If you ask them why, they will tell you that if the mirrors are there, they cannot maneuver. But you need the mirrors to even look at your side, or the back. And then also...
So that in itself is an illegality?
Very, it is.
And we're not addressing it?
We are not addressing it. And then nobody must be seated by that tricycle. But you find the guy riding and then somebody else is seated on the side with one leg somewhere else.
Why they usually do that with the leg.
There is no space for them, so you need to raise one leg, okay?
Right.
Which means that the center of gravity of that tricycle will not hold, okay? Because when he brings his leg down, it will affect the weight as well as the balance of everything. So they are quite a nuisance. Something must be done as soon as possible. But we don't have any current law to say they cannot use any road or any major road.
So just to be clear, we're not saying that they don't deserve, because they also have a means of transport. They also deserve to be there. But the problem is they are creating a nuisance. So how do we deal with it? Two things I want to run by you. What do we do? First of all, the weights they carry. And I don't know, like you said, this may be a loophole in LI 2180, because I don't know whether there are any dynamics when it comes to how much weight they can carry, because that will also determine how quickly they can go or how slowly they will move. The second bit is, can we have lanes allocated to them, for example? Is that something we should be thinking of as a country?
Well, let me start with the lanes, okay? In other developed countries, we have bicycle lanes, we have lanes for slower vehicles such as the tricycles. But then here we are, even our BRT, we are suffering. We don't have any dedicated for them. And I always talk about it, that it was quite a useless venture to introduce BRT in Ghana.
Now, talking of the Ayaludos and
yes,
when we don't have designated lanes.
Yes, if you don't have any segregated road, why do you worry yourself to bring in that huge bus, very expensive bus? Now they are struggling with structural because we don't have any segregated road. Okay, so we also don't have any road for these tricycles, and they are struggling with trotros as well as the ayalolos and so on. Right. And that is quite a difficult situation. We don't have any lanes at all for them. Now, talking about the issue of overloading, yes, there are laws on overloading. I mean, this tricycle, if
pardon the interjection, if you're in your saloon car and you have, say, 6 people in there, you can be stopped because you are taking way more people than is allowed. So same should apply to them, right?
See, yes, that is why when you look at a motorcycle, tricycle, right, if you go deep in it, it will tell you that, look, this is 2cc, which means that the cubic capacity must not exceed a certain amount, right? Now, do law enforcers know this? If they know, they will have to weigh the whole water or whatever is in the tricycles, because if they're in front of you and they cannot go, it is not a case that they cannot go. It is because of the overload which is affecting the equipment, which is the tricycle, okay? Some of them have very low capacity and therefore they cannot be on the major road. And that is what the Greater Accra Minister is pushing for. And that must happen. I am supporting it, that they must not be on the major road. They can be somewhere in the community, and that is what I'm also advocating for, especially those garbage guys, the tricycles that will use the motorway to empty their tricycles or their buckets. Okay, from Accra they are going to Pong to do that, and that is so bad, and that is also causing a lot of hassle. So what I am thinking of is that if it is here at La, okay, they cannot cross the major road. We should give them a central point where they can offload their garbage, and then we'll have a bigger vehicle that will come and pick all away and use the motorway instead of us allowing them to use the tricycles on the motorway, because the laws on the motorways are also there. No tricycles must be on the motorway, no bicycles, no human beings must cross the motorway. We have laws there. No motors that are below a certain capacity, that is mopeds.
A scooter, for example.
Yes, they cannot be on the motorway and so on. That is below 2.5 cubic capacities. They cannot use the motor. But what do we see? Human beings are using it. Horse riders are using it. They are crossing, and so the motorway. Yes, the motorway is destroyed. Right. So talking about tricycles, we don't have a lane. They are struggling. But the other issue is that most of them are breadwinners of their families. It is better for you to carry this water to go and give it to Auntie Mansa to get something for your family than to be an armed robber. Right. So we need to look at it. The situation is quite dicey, but we must also give them laws to go accordingly so that you and I will be free from any accident.
Thank you so much, Cecil. Thanks for the education. Hopefully you've learned something from today's segment. This has been part 2 of our getting into the causes of road crashes. But right before we end, so you think you know, here's the answer to today's quiz question. And that's the answer. If you didn't know, now you know. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Thank you for joining us for another installment of Drive Safe. Have a good day. Thank you so much for staying here on the AM show. We just got a sip of water because water is life, and I'm not sure you can ever do without it, can you? Awake is premium purified water treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. We have the perfect sizes for all occasions. 330 ml, 500 ml bottles to fit your pockets and bags, 750 for heavy drinkers, and 1.5 for those who always want more. The 19-liter jar bottles are ideal for homes and offices. Now, here's what you must do. Drink Awake Purified Water wherever you go. Choose a bottle of Awake Purified Drinking Water today and get quality hydration. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember that every bottle you purchase donates an amount to the National Cardiothoracic Center, another quality product by Akakpo Company Limited. Please call 026-235-1251, 026-235-1251. For bulk purchases. This advert is FDA approved. And Benjamin Akakpo is back. And Benjamin, are we going to start cooking from here?
Quite an interesting weekend it was. Major upsets and major triumphs for a lot of the new entrants. Baba Sadiq won.
Dr. Titus Bayo
won.
Others.
And it was quite interesting.
And the big wigs that fell.
Yeah.
We're going to miss ABF Husseini's proverbs.
ABF Husseini's is It's quite a shock for a lot of people. The Lasoa also lost.
Pando, yeah.
In Pando. Edward Bawa and Bongo. Dr. Kwabena Donko, he also lost.
The Pro East lawmaker.
Yeah. You know, former President Mahama's win, 98.9%. I'm not sure we're surprised, are we? It was.
But it's the highest we've seen for
and many described it as a walk in the park for him, and I think that the results prove that, don't they? But that's what it is with the NDC. Obviously, there will be a lot of discussions. Some wounds need to be healed. Some cracks need to be.
This morning when I spoke to Kofi Adams in Boehm and the one who nearly upset him, Ibrahim Mumuni. I mean, I was asking the other person, are you going to work with Kofi Adams? And he was telling me, well, he has to reach out. He has to reach out.
Right. So, I mean, Benjamin, another interesting thing. You were here over the weekend. That aspirant who sprayed money, Juliana Kingang.
Yeah.
She lost.
Oh, she's not the only one. All of those who went with any form of enticement.
She lost.
The Domiabra Obom one, Ni something. Aye, he lost.
Yeah.
The other person also lost. About 3 of them, all of them lost.
So here's what some of you have been saying about that. Mohammed says, wise decision, NDC must invite her to answer some questions. Thank God the delegates rejected her.
The legal team has said they would have an engagement with her.
Ebo Tieku says, NDC is very different from the other party. You can't use money to influence the decision of delegates. And Sam Olayama says those monies were seen as manna from heaven. It was like snow falling, not meant for reward. No one rewards the handiwork of nature, but rather they appreciate it. You get what they say? You can't reward rain, you just appreciate the rain. So they took it as manna falling from heaven.
What I found even more amusing was the fact that she says she found the cash in her car and started. I mean, you did it twice. You found it twice.
She's such a newbie in this game. I mean, you could just tell. Well, Benjamin, another thing that is trending apart from the fallouts from the NDC's primaries is Hilda Bassi, the chef who has been cooking for 88 hours.
4 days straight.
That is a lot of hard work. And I'm told that she's actually been planning this for 5 years, losing weight, being healthy, just to ensure that she can stand on her feet.
And I hear the requirement was that she had to, like you're saying, stand on her feet, not sit, not stand on her feet throughout.
At a point, I mean, I slept and I woke up and I still saw
she's still standing there.
But she was leaning, you know, and goodness me, that's a lot of effort that must be rewarded. And so that's also trending. If you haven't caught up with the trends yet, you can get onto Twitter or Facebook and see that for yourself. It's also on myjoyonline.com. We actually streamed the concluding hours of that record-breaking attempt by Hilda Bassi. We say congratulations to her. And Benjamin, you know, Ghana, Nigeria, we have this bromance.
We support. I actually saw it shared on social media. So we support when it comes to this. But when it comes to football, boxing, or jollof, forget it. Not.
So someone says she's not Chair Bassi. Another one says she's Bassiwa. So Ghanaians are claiming Hilda Bassi, but hey, congratulations to her. And there are those who are saying that no one should come and give any woman pressure because Hilda Bassi has done this for 88 hours. She's a chef. It's her job. That's how we end. That's how we end.
Bernice, Abu-Baidoo, Lansah.
Don't bring it. And that's how we end this edition of the AM. So thank you so much for your company. I'm Bernice, Abu-Baidoo, Lansah, and he's
I'm Benjamin Akakpo.
God willing, we are back again tomorrow. Up next is News Desk. Do stay.